Hello, spooky kids. Broadcasting from the crossroads of America in the great Midwest. This is Into the Night, and I am James Mitchell. What have we got going on today? Craziness, ladies and gentlemen. I've got a story here from The Mirror, which is a UK-based news outlet. COVID infection left me able to talk to the dead, so I married a ghost. A woman who previously divorced a ghost husband says she has met a new specter beau after falling ill with COVID. I'm not making this up. Singer-songwriter Brocarde from Oxfordshire fell in love with Eduardo, the ghost of a Victorian soldier, in late 2021 when he appeared in her home. However, a year after she said they got married, she called quits on the relationship amid accusations the spirit cheated on her. Brocard recently caught COVID, which she believes opened a portal to the afterlife. As during her time in the hospital, she had a string of strange out-of-body encounters and messages from beyond the grave. When she returned home, she had more experiences with a force she knew wasn't human. She said almost dying forces you to change your views on life. Nothing is infinite. Nothing is impossible. And there's a whole world out there that we don't truly understand. There's a lot of people out there that I don't truly understand. It's easy to write off ghost encounters as humor or fantasy, and I try my hardest to maintain a good sense of humor throughout everything I've encountered. There's a serious side to the spirit world. Talking about almost dying was impossible for me at the time, and after such a dramatic ghost encounter, I felt I needed to address the paranormal element of what happened, as it felt easier than the human element. But I really recognize the connection now between the two sets of events. There's definitely truth in the notion almost dying led to me being able to communicate with the dead. After that experience, my whole life changed. I was fearless because I'd realized death is the worst thing that could happen to us. So being judged for talking about my paranormal encounters felt irrelevant. I concluded everything happens for a reason, and when we faced with death, it's not the opinions of strangers that are important. Brocard's journey into the paranormal has seen her star in many TV shows. She's appeared on This Morning, on the day of her wedding, and her ghost wedding featured on Say Yes to the Dress with Tan France. Brocard previously called in an exorcist and was convinced her ex Eduardo was gone for good, so she treated herself to a trip to France where she says she met another ghost named Fabienne near the Eiffel Tower. When it followed her home, she became suspicious, and her worst fears were later confirmed. It was Eduardo in disguise. Wow. What a story. What a story. Question of the day. And I want to see you all to participate in this. It's pretty easy. All you got to do is just write in the chat. Would you rather be able to breathe underwater or have the agility of a cat? Personally, I'm going with cat agility because fuck the water. If I'm going to be breathing underwater, that means I'm going to be going deep, and I'm scared. I am scared. Right, so if I can get my cursor here. Let's see here. Tonight, we have the honor of hosting a truly remarkable guest. She's not only a prolific writer and talented artist, but also a dedicated supporter of the Debunking community on YouTube. Her journey began with a deep passion for writing from a young age, and she went on to study and teach film analysis, enriching her perspective on storytelling and art. Her artwork has been featured on a Mondo Generator album. That's a band from California. It's been displayed in U.S. exhibitions, and her pen and ink depiction of the three witches from Macbeth was projected onto a New York building. I was not able to figure out which New York building it was, but that is no small feat regardless. Her unique insights into the paranormal are shaped by personal experiences, and she is now in the process of self-publishing her written works. Please join me in welcoming the talented Sarah, better known as Fantastique Publishing. Hello, Sarah. How are you? Yeah. Well, good morning. Good morning to you. Who do we have in the chat? We have Candy7, Caroline Saxby, Hair Force 1, Julie, Juniper, Michael Burkeen, Rob Linklater, Stay Tuned CC, Steph Cuervo Queen, Teshi, and Udahef. I believe today is Steph's birthday. I do believe. As you guys can see, and most of you already know this, but I'm going to run through it anyway. Save all your questions for later. I'm going to be interviewing Sarah for the next 2 hours or so. You have how much time do you have for me tonight? Usually the show I try to get about 3 hours. Usually I try to do about 2 hours of interview and then about an hour of taking calls and stuff like that. Do you have that?
2 hours will be fine. Yeah, I'll probably be all right. I may have to take a break at some point.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I usually after 2 hours I usually take a break. If you need a break before that, just say so, and I'll yeah. And then after that we take the last hour for questions and call-ins, and then people can either call in or they can ask their question in the chat. So I've recently just seen your face. I think you've just recently shared your face. I don't know if... Yeah, I watched that video of you having coffee outside of a night. It looked like a cold little outdoor coffee house.
It was freezing. It was absolute winter.
Is it cold where you live, like all the time, or do you get good days, or?
So even our summers. Toilet today was the first day about 3 weeks. Actually, it's been really bad this year. So
Hold on.
it is what it is. You know, I mean, I love where I live, but it's down south, so it would be nice to see a little time. Especially as I do pretty much every day, go to that cafe in the morning and sit outside and have a coffee. And I sit outside because I smoke. So yeah, I'm used to it, but it was cold.
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to go to England, and I've just never. Obviously, it's that's not something I can just go and run off and do, but there's just something about. I've always been fascinated with medieval England, kings and queens and castles and dragons and all that stuff.
Yeah.
As an American, there's a romance to me about that. I used to draw that kind of thing when I was a kid. I always thought it would be wonderful to visit the castles of England and Scotland and all of that. So I am envious of you to a degree because it's just your backyard. Whereas out here, my backyard is a giant cornfield.
No, literally, there's a castle at the top of the road. So the county I live in has the most castles of any English county. So we've got them all over the place.
That is amazing. That's amazing. Let's tell me about your early days as a writer. What got you into writing at such a young age?
Well, actually, even from being a kid, I just loved to write, mainly fiction. And because I didn't start doing art until I was about 19, school told me I couldn't draw a straight line, not to bother. So I always loved to write, and so it's been the sort of common theme for me right the way through is writing. I wrote stories as a kid, as well as doing a lot of reading. When I was, in my teens and they were starting to talk about careers, I kept saying I wanted to be a writer, and they kept just saying journalist. And I said, I don't want to be a journalist, I want to be a writer. They didn't understand that. In my 20s, I did a lot of fanzines. If people don't know what fanzines are, they're fan magazines, because we're going back a bit. It's before the internet, so hard copy magazines that I used to do. And then university career writing, and I'm one of those typical writers that has so much stuff in the cupboard that's never been used. And the reason that the channel's called Fantastique Publishing is originally it was set up for me to start doing artwork to some of the stories and literally get them published hard copy. So that's why the channel's called what it is, because that's what it was originally for.
Gotcha.
I just love it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, when it's within you, and I say this a lot to musicians or whatever, but I've never really. My father wrote a book. Didn't do anything with it, but he wrote a book. He's always fancied himself a writer. When it's within you to do it, you're just writing. And I've listened to a lot of your stories, which I think you have a great voice for narrating your stories as well. It just kind of pours out of you. What kinds of things do you write about? I mean, I know I've heard some of the things that I have, but in the event that there are people that are listening that have never heard of you, what kinds of stories do you write?
They tend to be either fantasy or horror, or that sort of along that sort of genre. It's not real. It's not realistic writing. It's sort of fantastical, really. Hence the name.
Right.
So most of the stuff that I've got is, when I was in my teens, I started writing a book that was a fantasy story, which I've still got. But some of the stuff that I draw from, for example, there's a couple of the short stories on the channel I actually wrote myself, and one of them is actually from that book. It's It's just pulling out the material.
Okay.
But the reason, but my dad was a writer. I mean, he was a teacher, but he wrote loads of children's books that he never got around to having published. He died in 2020, but I literally have a cupboard full of his books as well. So again, as well as putting my stuff with my artwork, I've got all his books that I wanted to do as well. So at some point, I will sort of get around to that.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't just that. It's like when I've just found writing itself being an easy technique. Like when I was doing the fanzines. In the first big fanzine I did was on Guns N' Roses with a friend.
Oh wow!
And yeah, so it was sort of
Axl Rose is from Lafayette, Indiana, which is about an hour away from where I live. And I will tell you, to be in a room with that man while he's singing and playing piano, and I'm not talking a big stadium.
Yeah.
To be in a room with that man when he's playing the piano and singing is emotionally compromising. It is incredible. I've never heard anybody play piano and sing the way that guy can. I didn't mean to interrupt you. It's just one of those things that...
No, well, when we were doing the fanzine, because this was during the Use Your Illusion tour, and I saw them about, 10 or 11 times. I mean, it was all stadiums.
Right.
But I saw them 10 or 11 times in the UK and in one or two places in Europe as well. And their shows were amazing. And I can still... One of the things I remember most about that show is if they were in a location where they could do it, he actually used to have the piano coming up from the floor before he started to use it, sort of dancing on top. But clearly knew how to play.
Yeah.
And just the because it was most, apart from the Admot Soreman, it was most the original lineup at that point. I've seen some of the others in very small venues like Izzy Stradlin and Slash and Duff.
Yeah.
When they did solo stuff, but no, it was. They weren't the only band I liked. It was a friend who was sort of really into them, but I loved seeing them live.
Yeah.
And yeah, we did a fanzine together, and we had contact at the time with Big FD, which was their management company, because they found out we were doing it. But yeah, that was the first fanzine I did, and so I actually did fanzines for quite a few years. I miss doing them actually. There's just not really, nobody wants hard copy anymore. They just want online, and for me, it's not the same when it's online.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. There is something special about buying, buying a magazine and having it in your hands and being able to flip through it. There is something special about that. I know that Izzy Stradlin went back to Lafayette because he was from Lafayette too, and he lives there today, as a matter of fact. I heard that Steven Adler lived in Danville, Indiana, and I don't know if that's true, but there was this guy I used to go to school with, and he said, yeah, he goes to my church. I was like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I love, which I don't know if, do you remember the band Blind Melon?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Shannon Hoon was also from Lafayette, and he and Axl were really good friends. And he appeared on Use Your Illusion 2 in the song Don't Cry. He's the high voice in the background, and he was on the music video, and that was before Blind Melon even really took off. And a lot of people say Blind Melon was a one-hit wonder, and to those people, I want to smack them, because every single song that band ever wrote was really good, too. And I don't know, it was just Axl Rose helped that band get a start, that helped them, because they went to Geffen Records, and just like, because that's the record label that Guns N' Roses were on, and Axl really helped them out. So that's awesome. I had no idea you had such good taste in music. I mean, I'm not surprised, but that's super cool. So how did you transition from writing to creating art? Or was it kind of one with the other because you're writing stories and you decided to do your own illustrations, or what led you down that path?
It was kind of two separate stories that came together, because both my parents are artists, or were artists. And I literally went through school with really bad art teachers who used to say, oh, Sarah's not creative at all. Mm-hmm. So I actually can't even remember why I picked a pencil up. I literally picked a pencil up when I was about 19, and I actually drew. I hit my teens in 1980, which sucked to hit at that point, because I was a rocker. I've always been a rocker, and so you had to work really hard in the first half of the 80s to find the music, because over here it was all synthesizer and you know, the stuff that was readily available. So what I ended up doing for a lot of the time was looking backwards. So I got into the Who and the Stones and a lot of 70s and 60s stuff. Mm-hmm. So the reason I mentioned that is my very first picture I drew is I actually drew a picture of the Rolling Stones. I haven't got it anymore, but I can visualize it, and it was awful, but it was so much better than you know what somebody, when you know, having been told for nearly 20 years that you can't draw a straight line. I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, there's some potential here. So actually what I did for years, because I'm both a rocker and a geek, is I just drew fan art for years and just got the technique up. It was never a thought, oh, I'll be a full-time artist one day. It's just I really love to do it. So with doing things like the fanzines as well, it did start to sort of merge between the two, that I'd be illustrating stuff for the fanzines and for my own stories. But for the most part, the art, until about 12 years ago, it was a hobby. Yeah. You know? I just think, you know, I mean, you're a musician as well. I mean, you get what it's like if you're creative, you're a creative, whether it's the music, which I've sort of, I always tell to anybody, I always sound like the old person now who says to anybody who plays guitar or piano, it doesn't matter whether you ever do anything with it, just keep it going, because I actually really regret not keeping what I did going. Right. But when you're creative, it doesn't matter what it is, whether it's music or art or writing or combining all of it, you just can't help but create. So you just find different ways of doing it, you know? That's right. Again, when it's within you to do it, it sort of aches to come out. It sort of aches, yeah. And I used to draw when I was a kid.
I had a comic book that I had drawn, and I was like 10 years old, and I was aspiring to be, you know, somebody who worked for Disney, because back then everything was still done hand. You still drew by hand on paper and cells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm glad I didn't go down that path now. I don't think I would want to work for Disney at all, but I do miss drawing. I remember I did a pointillism picture of Paul Stanley, which is probably one of the coolest things I had ever done. Just dots. You know what pointillism is. And that took me forever and ever to draw. And I do miss it. And there's something about taking a piece of paper. I remember I was, as silly as it may seem, I was in love with blank sheets of paper, because you were about to turn nothing into something.
Yeah.
You know.
I'm actually the same with that. I'm the same with that for both drawing and writing. I love buying a new, whether it's a sketchbook or a journal. I just love it. Just like you say, that possibility of what could actually go in it. And I'm terrible for buying it. I buy them all the time.
Well, they're cheap and they're readily available, and you can never have too many pads of paper.
And I always for years have a notebook with me.
Right.
Straight away, you know.
Mm-hmm, yeah. What made you want to study film analysis?
That's actually a weird one that I fell into, because what happened was when I first left school, I went to college and dropped out. So, sort of in my early 20s, I went down to London for a while, which is why I managed to see, you know, Guns N' Roses so many times, and so many other bands as well in the late 80s, early 90s. But when I came back home, I even though I dropped out, I always wanted to do a degree, but because I dropped out, I wanted to wait till I was absolutely ready for it, you know. And it was just when I was looking for degrees, and I was looking for different things, but I was looking for American history, because I do love American history.
Mm-hmm.
But one of our local universities did a minor in American history and did a major in media studies, so I kind of fell into it. But like I said, I've always loved film and TV, etc. So it seemed like a natural thing for me to do. And I ended up taking it to a MA, and I did start doing a PhD, but I didn't finish it. Because the job I was in just didn't want to give me the time to do it. But that was what I ended up specialising in at university, was sort of film and TV. From a analysis side, I did a little bit of the filmmaking, but for me it was mainly the analysis, breaking it down.
Okay, well, what are some of your favorite films or things to analyze?
And
what is it you're looking for? Let me ask you that too. What is it you're looking for when you're analyzing? What's going through your mind?
Well, because I did so many years of sort of studying it and doing papers on it, I pretty much look at everything. For me, I suppose it's a lot of it from an aesthetics point of view and a storytelling point of view. So it's why I always say on the channel, I'm not a debunker, I'm a film analyst, because if I am looking at, for example, the paranormal, I am looking at it from a film analyst point of view. The way the camera moves, what the background is, the way the people are, where they're positioned. You know, I can spot very easily if something's been set up, you know, foreshadowing, understanding does that make sense? Understanding narrative and camera angles, and even before I knew there was such a thing as a debunking community, because I hit YouTube hard in 2020 because we were in massive lockdown and watching paranormal videos, and even though I didn't know anything about, I mean, you know, I questioned most of them, yeah, sure, but some of the channels, sometimes people are surprised at some of the channels I instantly sort of questioned, and it was because of the way they did the filming, and I kept thinking, and one of them was, how I got to your documentary, one of them was the Ghost of Carmel, Maine. Because, you know, the bit you debunked where it comes out of the window, sort of snaps out of the window.
Right.
I think that was my first introduction to it. So I looked at the channel, and another channel is Mindseed that I sort of questioned, because it's so high contrast. So all I'm looking at it is thinking there's so many places to hide jump cuts and bad, bad camera, potato camera techniques, and they clearly can afford. Both channels can clearly afford good cameras, but just all of those different techniques. That's what I spot. I'm not going to spot fishing wire. I don't know enough about the apps. I'm trying to learn about the apps at the moment, but I don't know enough about them. So the equipment, there's no point in me trying to debunk that. But when it comes to the way it's actually been shot and the sounds used and the narratives told, and when it's clear that they're storytelling, it just stands out a mile for me. The foreshadowing, and there's certain channels. I mean, obviously now there's a lot more channels, I'll question. But even back then, before I knew what debunking was, there were certain channels that just rang alarm bells because of the way they filmed it.
Yeah. You definitely hit the nail on the head when with Kent and how he likes to do things. He's very. I've got some ideas of how he does things. I think he actually films his screen with his phone afterwards, and that helps hide a bunch of things. I love that you saw the video that I debunked before I had debunked it and was already suspicious of the guy. I mean, there's plenty of things that he did that was very suspicious. But Mindseed, I loved Mindseed at first. I thought they were great. And then after a bit, it just got more and more ridiculous. And now I don't have any kind of background in film analysis. I just, other than just, doing it myself and just watching and learning, and that's how I learn. And these things started popping out to me. How did the experience of teaching, because you said you went back to teach film analysis at the same university you studied at, did that change your approach to art and writing, or just what was that experience like, going from the student to the teacher?
The university I did both my degree and my master's in, it was a natural progression for some people. If you were doing a master's degree, they would give you a little bit of teaching to start off to sort of get you through it. I don't know whether the teaching, whether the lecturing actually made a huge difference. Actually, no, I think what it did do was, especially if you were teaching students who were just coming in and hadn't actually done film analysis before. I mean, if you're teaching, for example, film students, they're really into their film, so it's not like you're trying to sell the subject to them. You've just got to try and get them how to actually do the analysis. So I think sometimes it helps to learn how to get them to understand how to break it down.
Right.
And I just really enjoyed that. I mean, I love the topic. It was nice for stuff to start to TBR was teaching, because some of the stuff I had to sit through with university. I always used to say, I'll never watch that again, and I ended up teaching it. But I don't know that the actual teacher kind of, I don't know, maybe it did, but maybe I'm just not aware of it.
Right.
Other than helping me with my analysis, etc. Because you're always ahead of the students. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's amazing when they come up with something you haven't come up with, or they have a different take on something. Because I was very big. It didn't make me very popular sometimes with certain members of staff, but I was very big that there wasn't a right answer if the student analysed a scene in a certain way, and they could back it up as to why they thought that. Because the first thing you get from them when they're first years is, am I right? Am I right? Am I right? And I'm like, it's not a case of right or wrong. It's a case of how you actually interpret it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you brought that up, because when you're doing something like that, the analysis is it's the person analyzing it, and the things that they see may not be what you see. And then when they voice that, you might think, oh, wow, how did I not ever notice that? And then it leaves room for the conversation, which I think is really what analyzing film is about. I think, is that safe to say? It's about the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some techniques or approaches that you use when you're analyzing films? Or is there such a thing? Is that a fair question?
It sounds simplistic, but I think the first thing I look at is the visual. Like I say, I'll look at the mise en scène, which is basically everything in the shot, whether it's just the way that sets dressed, the art direction, where people are placed. It sounds like I'm doing a long list, but you kind of look. You're going to know. You look at everything at once. When you use it, for you as a filmmaker, you're not going to be breaking everything down. You probably can look at a whole location and everything's going in your head at once because you're used to doing it. So I'm making it sound more complicated than it is. Yeah, I think for me, I probably look at the visuals first, which is why when I was watching those early videos, I was probably picking up on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because I always used to say, I always say that if say I was doing a proper analysis of a film, you can't watch it once and do the analysis. You watch it first, and then you go back and start. You need to know the storyline first, so you can start getting the finer details of what happens. So the downside of it when you're used to analysing is it's a lot harder for me to get through a film without guessing what the twist at the end is. I actually like it when a film surprises me.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. How has that background, do you feel like it's influenced your art or your writing projects because of your ability to analyze film?
Yeah, I don't know I don't know whether it's because of doing the film analysis or because I was always a massive nerd anyway. But I've always thought visually, if that makes sense. So, if I'm writing a story, or when I used to write songs, or even a piece of artwork, I mean, some of the things that will influence me most actually will be a piece of music, will be a song, might give me the idea for a story or a piece of artwork, etc. So, yeah, I think, like I say, for me, it all meshes into one big ball of creativity, and it just depends where you get the inspiration from at any one point. I don't see one thing as being inspiring. It can be anything, but probably the most inspiring thing for me is music. But then it's because usually, a bit like reading a book. You read a book, you visualize the characters, the locations as you read in the book. I kind of do the same thing with songs. I don't know if you're the same, but images come in your head when you listen to music, and I've got music on all the time. So I'm probably more influenced by that than the film and TV, to be honest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. I definitely get visuals when I listen to music. Certain songs may make me think about driving in a convertible down a lonely desert road, or through the city at night, or there's a multitude of images that music can project into your mind. So I love hearing you talk about, I like that. Well, do you prefer analyzing classic films or modern films, or do you have a preference?
I don't have a massive preference, but mainly modern. I just want. I mean, that was the luxury. The more you get into the career of teaching and doing the research, is you can pick and choose what you do rather than somebody else forcing something. I never liked doing it when somebody else suggested the film. If it was a film I enjoyed, great, but I've got to enjoy it to analyze it. I'm not one of these stuffy academics that will analyze certain films because they should. I want to analyze the film, but I want to analyze that I'm actually interested in and enjoy.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Yeah, that makes sense. Why do something if you don't enjoy doing it? You know?
Yeah.
Well, let's bridge the gap between film and paranormal. Do you think the relationship between film and the portrayal of the paranormal, how do you see that? Or are there any films that you think handle the paranormal particularly well or poorly?
I think I kind of see the reverse more. I think that's the other thing that I won't be the only one. That the other thing that I think a lot of people, when they're watching certain paranormal investigators, it's just straight out of the film book. It's you're just thinking. I mean, we talked about Mindseed. It was like the poltergeist table, chairs incident, and it's like oh God, if you're gonna pull something, don't pull it straight out of. There's certain films I think that you can just see the way if they're constructing it, they've got it from Halloween or like I say, Poltergeist, or it's like Paranormal Activity. That could be one of them. So, but in terms of films that I like that actually handle the paranormal well, I think from a filmic point of view. Because I get more scared by the thought of something and by not it being in your face all the time. So films like The Shining and The Changeling, I'm a big fan of, and I love Halloween and Freddy. I want my horror films. I want to still be in my head when it's finished. I don't want it to turn off and I've forgotten about it. If it really works for me. It plays on it. The
Changeling. Correct me if I'm wrong. Does that have George C. Scott in it?
Yeah, George C. Scott. Terrified me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't terrify me very often. I love my horror films, but they don't terrify me very often. But that one did. The other one that absolutely terrified me, and I don't think it's the best of films or anything, but I could not handle the Blair Witch Project.
Yes, that's my favorite found footage film. I love that. To me, is there nothing can top it. And I don't mean to interject, but the thing that I love about that film is the use of your imagination that it relies heavily upon, because you never see what it is that's out there with them. You are left to imagine it, and that is something that there is not enough of anymore in film. That's like when you watch the original Dracula with Bela Lugosi, you never see him bite the victim. You see him go in, and it fades to black. And it's all meant... Of course, back then, rules were a lot more strict on what you could put on film. And I love that there were those restrictions, because it forced the writer and director to rely on the imagination of the viewer. And that's something that I think is just astounding about the Blair Witch. For when it came out, this is the 90s, and there were no films like that at all. And it is just, I always get chills during I think it's their second or third night, when you hear the children outside.
That was the worst bit for me.
Yeah. It's so
the wrong
good.
Noise at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Actually, that film before I think I was only just, I can't remember what year it came out. But I think I was only just starting my degree. But that film taught me how important sound is in horror. Because there were certain, if I rewatch it, there are certain parts that I have to turn the sound right down, and it's the parts where the screen goes completely black,
right?
Because it's just making you listen towards the sound. It did terrify me, but like you say, it just leaves so much to the imagination. But it does it so well.
Yeah.
And of course, the handheld camera. The Blair Witch is responsible for so many techniques that goes to some of the less honest ghost investigators do, because that handheld camera and all that, and it's straight out of Blair Witch, half of it.
Hey, totally. There was a movie done, I believe it's called Willow Creek, and it's only about an hour and 10 minutes long, and it's very similar, but it's about Bigfoot, and it is so well done. It is so well done.
Oh, it's like the new one.
No, it's older. It's
That's an old one.
I would say it's probably about 12 years old now, maybe. And the man who wrote it and put it together is Bobcat Goldthwait. I don't know if you know
Really?
who yeah.
Yeah, I know
Yeah.
Bobcat Goldthwait is,
Yeah. And which surprised the hell out of me when I saw his name. I was like, wow, because it's not something that you would typically think to come from that guy. And it's really good. And again, I think it's called Willow Creek. But yeah, if you enjoyed the Blair Witch, I would suggest watching that movie too, because I think it's, as far as those films go, it's like second place to me, and it's a high second place. How did you get to be featured on a Mondo Generator album? What's the story behind that?
That's a good question. How did I get on Nick's? Oh, I used to run. I ran online forums for a long time. One of the ones I used to run was on Queens of the Stone Age.
Oh yeah, I love them.
And Mondo obviously was when Nick left. And I can't remember how it happened or where he advertised it, but he basically asked for artwork for an album he was doing, and the artwork went on to he actually produced it in vinyl. I've got the vinyl. They sent me a copy of the vinyl.
Cool.
So I actually love that. Being old school, I love the fact that my artwork actually went onto an actual vinyl cover, and I think it was a gatefold as well. So yeah, I can't remember though. I can't even remember how I knew about this little competition, but
so tell me the connection between Mondo Generator and Queens of the Stone Age. This is Nick? Is he a part of Queens of the Stone Age? Because I do enjoy.
He was. When I was when they first started, he was the bass player.
Oh, okay.
And I used to follow a lot of that crowd, not just Queens of the Stone Age, but there was quite a few musicians that from that sort of desert set that I used to follow, like Mark Lanigan.
Yeah.
Met quite a few of them with the tours. So Mark Lanigan I met, and
I've also met
people like that.
Yeah, Mark Lanigan was a wonderful dude. I met him a couple times. He was a good friend of mine. Was best friends with Mark Lanigan. So when Mark Lanigan was there's this concert, and it goes all around the world. It's called All Tomorrow's Parties. And back in 2012, it was in New York, and it was curated by Greg Dooley. And Mark Lanigan was kind enough to put me on his guest list, so I got a VIP pass. I was able to meet Mark and hang out in the dressing room with those guys with the Afghan wigs, and it's interesting because my sister, who is long lost, I had just recently found her. She introduced me to Mark Lanigan, and he knew who she was and stuff. Yeah, it was really absolutely crazy because he's somebody that I very much looked up to and still do. It was very sad to hear about him passing away, but Eagles of Death Metal. That's another band that is in that group of people. I don't know if you've heard of them, but yeah.
Yeah, I've seen them a couple of times. Yeah.
They were the band that was playing in Paris when Paris was bombed.
Do you know when that happened? Because I've seen Eagles of Death Metal at least twice. Can't remember how many times.
Yeah.
Because they all that set do come over here. Because I saw Eagles of Death Metal actually. One of the times I saw them was at a tiny little nightclub in London. I mean, I'm talking tiny.
That would be amazing.
It was the one time that I managed to see Eagles of Death Metal with Josh drumming for them.
Oh, cool. That's awesome.
But when that Paris incident happened, I remember it was just the whole night was shocking, obviously, and that particular. But when it happened with the Eagles Death Metal concert, it was that, having been to sort of literally hundreds of gigs in my life, and I
Right.
have seen, and I just kept thinking I could have been in there. You
Yeah.
know, that's how sort of close to home that, you know, if I'd have been in Paris and I'd seen Eagles of Death Metal, do you know what I mean? And that's when I
Sure.
think that it's like that drive it home for you. When I mean, they're always awful to look at, but when it's suddenly in a situation that you've been in yourself, you know, a venue with a rock band so many times, and you just think, oh, it's just terrific. It's just
Yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
I don't know if they kept going after that. Actually, they did go quiet for a bit.
Well, it really affected the
Jesse.
Jesse, yeah, or Boots Electric as he goes by in the. That guy is phenomenal. That guy is really, you know, he was only playing guitar for 6 months when they released Peace, Love, and Death Metal. He was only playing for 6 months, and it's that album. Because there's this time where it's like I was learning about all this new music. That's one of my favorite albums. There's so many good songs on that album, man, and I love his lyrics. You know, I mean, "Who Loved the Devil." You know, that song is so good. Who loved the devil? Who'll kiss his tongue? I will kiss the devil on his tongue. It's like, fuck yeah. You know, I don't know, it's just so. He's a very interesting person, very interesting, and there was a documentary that came out shortly after that, and you could see it really affected him. You know, he felt responsible. And how could you not? You know, it wasn't his fault, but such a tender guy, you know. Your art has been displayed in some exhibitions here in the U.S. What was that like for you? How did that impact your career as an artist?
Oh, not a lot. Honestly, not a lot. Just so I could actually say I've been exhibited in Miami and New York and Long Island. I think it was Brooklyn. Then there was the projection. Basically, it was an online site, so they actually they projected onto either buildings or at the exhibition. It wasn't like the hard copy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was a shame about the building one actually, because they do give you a time and the location of where it is. But and I didn't realize at the time I had friends in New York who could have gone there and
Right.
and sort of taken a picture of it for me. So that's the only one I don't have a picture of actually, because the others they did tend to send you something to show that they'd actually done the exhibition. So
Right.
yeah. I just thought it was a cool. It's just a sort of cool thing I can say. Internationally exhibited, you know, self promotion.
Well, it's no. I mean, I think it's wonderful. I mean, any kind of exposure, you know. I wonder how many people saw what you put out there and was like, oh wow, you know, who is this person that drew this, and you know, that's always. You know, that's nothing to be scoffed at, you know, even if it was something just small or whatever, as you might put it out there to be. I don't think it's there. You know, there were people who got to enjoy your artwork, people that you've never met, people that you'll never meet, and I think there's something to be said about that. So have you had any? We're gonna switch to the paranormal to a bit because you were watching paranormal things on YouTube. My birds are chiming in. I don't know if you can hear them, but
What about it?
yeah, those are birds in my chimney. They are always causing a ruckus. Yeah. What made you interested in the paranormal? Were there things that happened to you? Did you have any kind of experiences?
I've had loads of experiences over my life, but I don't remember many as a kid. I just remember I had this book as a kid, which I've still got somewhere, which was just like a compilation of different ghost stories, pictures, aliens, folk tales, you know, urban legends, which I suppose in the 70s wouldn't have been urban legends as we know now, but you know, sort of stories like that, just from older times. But it was this complete compilation of these stories, and I used to just go through that book all the time, just reading it. I was also right from the beginning. I was always into my science fiction.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm UK. I'm in the 70s, so I'm watching. Obviously, I'm in the UK, so I'm watching Doctor Who. My dad was massive into science fiction as well, so I was one of those kids that I don't know. I can't see the chat on my screen StreamYard, so I don't know who's in. But a lot of the older UK lot will tell you that you were two type of kid in the UK when it came to Doctor Who. You lived in a house where you weren't allowed to watch it, or you lived in a house like mine where it was compulsory. Right? So watching things like that, and both British and American shows, I love my science fiction, and my horror stories and anything supernatural. So I don't know. I don't know what. It was just what I was into, whether it was from the encyclopedia or whether it was something, fictional on the TV. It's just something it's always been my favourite genre, if you like.
Sure.
So, but I actually don't remember many experiences as a kid. They tend to start later. I mean, I've had loads, but I keep trying to think, well, did I have any as a kid? And I actually don't. I don't know if I didn't or if I just wouldn't have been aware of it because I would have taken it for granted. But I don't remember that many as a child.
Yeah. Yeah. You say you had something as an adult. Would you care to share?
Well, I've had quite a few over the years. I'm in my 50s, so you talk about a lot of years. So if I listed them all, it would sound like a lot. But bear in mind, you're going through a lot of years here.
Sure.
It's not like going out every week and being attacked by a demon or anything. So, I mean, I've had loads of experience, audible experiences. But I suppose some of the biggest experiences, I have seen a shadow figure. I have seen a full-bodied apparition, and that, because most of my experiences were actually, I could hear it rather than see anything. I was actually a bit skeptical about seeing anything till I saw stuff myself. And then, so there's those two experiences, and the other big experience is a weird one. I can't remember if I've told it online before, but because it's a bit of a sensitive subject in the UK, but it was almost like I don't want to call it a premonition, but just a feeling that I had before a really bad event over here. So, which I just can't explain at all. But yeah, I've seen. But I mean, I've known friends who've got haunted houses. I've lived in a haunted flat myself. Just and before I even knew what the word debunking was, I always naturally tried to look for an actual explanation for things.
Right.
So, I could whittle it down to a hand. There's stuff I can say, oh, well, it could have been this or it could have been that, but I can whittle it down to a handful that I actually say, no, that absolutely happened. Whatever the explanation is, and I think we've already been on live streams where I've said that I'm open as to what the explanations are.
Right.
I don't really like the word ghost or whatever. It's passed over. It might not be. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. But yeah, so I can whittle it down to stuff like absolutely.
Fair enough. I'm starting to lose a bit of your audio. I don't know what happened there. I think it's just.
It might be my internet, Jimmy, because mine sometimes does. So can you hear me now?
I can.
Right.
I'm glad that you brought up the obviously you're looking for a logical explanation when you have something happen. You're not immediately just like, oh, that was a ghost. You start thinking and start brainstorming. What could that have been? Yeah. What is it about the debunking community on YouTube that you find the most fascinating, and why? Well, how did you become such a strong supporter of it?
Well, like I said, I hadn't really heard the word debunking for a long time. When I mentioned in 2020 starting to watch all the paranormal stuff, I also came across Mr. Grey.
Mm-hmm.
from the UK. So he's the one I've been watching the longest. And then about 2 years ago, 2 years ago, sort of found Beardo, and then it snowballed from there. So it's sort of Beardo and Seg and Purple and everybody, and then Beardo did a video shouting out Crow and Joe and other people. So I just started watching more and more channels, and it's an you've stumped me a little bit actually, because I've been a very I've literally been a part of the community for 2 years. Love the community, love everything it does, but I don't know if I can narrow it down to one thing. I just think it's because I do believe in the paranormal. Just going to say that I 100% believe in it. But like I said, I've always naturally looked for an explanation before actually turning to a paranormal explanation. So maybe the meshing of the two. I just like the community as well. I like the content. It's in, I don't know. Maybe this sounds shallow, but I like to like who I'm watching.
Sure.
And I like the personalities, and I like the just the passion that everybody has for the subject that's doing it. Whether you agree with somebody or not, one of the debunkers or not, or whatever, it's that they're serious about what they do in this community, and that's important. That really is important, that it's not being done for the sake of clicks and views. It's being done because they want to find the truth, but at the same time they want to call out those who are faking it, if I'm going to be honest about it. So I do like that. And I mean, I was a lurker for about a year, which I wasn't bothered about. I wasn't looking to be integral part of the community. But from sort of joining Crow's Facebook page, getting to know people, sort of starting the channel, I'm fully in now. So I just like the community.
Yeah, the community is wonderful group of people. Yeah, I had no idea that they even existed, and they sort of found me. And it really meant a lot to me to hear you say that I was one of you. That meant a lot when I heard you say that, because I haven't really had I've been on a different side of YouTube for the past 10 years. I have a video game channel that I was over there, and there was no community for me over there. Nothing. And so I just did this thing because I wanted to. And then slowly people started finding me and started inviting me, and it really gave me a sense of home. And you helped. You're partly responsible for that, so I want to thank you personally for that.
Oh, you're welcome. Jim's paying it forward though as well, because that's what happened with me.
Yeah.
I've had my ups and downs over the past 6 months of the channel with certain things. I don't know that I'd still be doing this if I wasn't part of the community. It's not that I don't want to do this. I'd be at a loss as to what to have done when I got into trouble with Danny Moss. And I'd have been I was sort of, because I had the monetization problem this week.
Yes.
And I'm a fighter, I'll just get on with things, but it would have been a million times harder without the support of other creators, of the community. I'm hoping he's not lurking, but Crow's been a diamond.
Yeah.
Crow's been there all the time, and I've had somebody who's been doing it and Crow's been doing it for over 5 years. Somebody who's had the experience, who can sort of go through the mechanics with you. And people, you said at the beginning about my voice, and people kept saying, "Oh, you've got a lovely voice," and I didn't want to put my voice on the channel. Crow was one of the people that sort of advised me on how to get around that. But I couldn't imagine doing what I'm doing, and I certainly wouldn't have got as far as fast as I've done without advice there. It's not about the shout outs. That's what people need to understand. The shout outs are wonderful. It's great, and you know, I'm always appreciative of it. But you need to know what you're doing, and having people there behind the scenes who can advise you. And so when other people are welcomed into the community, that's why this community works. It's, you know, now how much goes on behind the scenes, and people help each other and work it out. And I mean, like I say, I ran forums for a long time. You know, fan forums, Queens of the Stone Age, Foo Fighters, various different ones. And yeah, they were great communities, but I've never known such a solid community as this in what we're in 24. So, you know, nearly 30 years of being online, I haven't known such a supportive community as this. Is it perfect? No, it's not. But it really is one that's selfless if you do it the right way, you know.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up your recent struggles, because I wanted to ask you about it. You've been demonetized by YouTube, which we know why? Do we know why?
It's the most. I'll tell you what was funny was like when I was when Crow was live, and I was watching that, I actually got an email from them to say, "Oh, will you give us some feedback?" And I'm thinking, you the most dangerous person to ask for feedback here, because what actually happened is I got my hours, and I'd already got the number of subscribers. I hit my hours. And they said, "Oh, you can apply for monetization." I applied, and I think it was the next day they said, "Yeah, you can be monetized." Then 7 days later, they took it away. And the thing I'm most angry about is, like, if there was something wrong with the channel that wouldn't qualify for monetization, why did you monetize me in the first place? Why wasn't that looked at? Because I now have to wait till October to reply again. Whereas if they hadn't have monetized me, they could have said, "If you do this, this, and this, then we'll monetize." You know, anyway.
Right.
But the trouble is, anybody out there who's listening, who's got a channel, who's doing monetization, is what they clearly do is
kind of losing some audio on you there. Sorry. And right now you're giving some. There we go.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry. You were just about to start saying something important, and it started going muffled, and I didn't want to. I didn't want the people to miss out. So, go ahead.
Okay. No, what I was going to say is what happened, because at first I couldn't work out why they demonetized me, because it was just gobbledygook in studio. Because what they actually do when they give you reasons is they literally copy and paste from guidelines, which doesn't give you a specific reason as to why you're being demonetized. It just said for me, and apparently it's a common problem that they say to people, repetitive content, third-party content. But they never actually tell you what content they're talking about, right? So I've kind of had to surmise, talking to different people, and I'm not talking about YouTube. YouTube haven't told me that I think it's because I use AI artwork. You know, we think that what they mean by the third party is when I'm using Copilot or Suno for the music and the artwork. So I think that's. And the other thing I'd found out was about they like to see your face on camera, which is why on Sunday I actually did my first vlog with my face on camera. So I'm going to have to spend the next 3 months rearranging the way I do the channel.
Yeah, I think it's really unfair because, I mean, I watch this channel called the Y Files, and they use a lot of AI stuff in their videos, or his videos, which I love. I love that channel. But you're not the only one that is using AI to create content with. And I mean, you're not using AI to make anybody say something they didn't say. You're not using it in against the TOS. I think it's because it's still so new that maybe YouTube is unsure of how to go about allowing that content. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not trying to defend them, but it is still pretty new. And I imagine within the next year or two, perhaps those things will be better. But it's unfortunate that you have fallen victim to something that will probably in a year or two be completely okay. You know, there's a reason why you didn't show your face. You are allowed your anonymity, and for them to try and push you into sharing your face, which is a beautiful face, I must say. I don't know why they feel that they can strong arm you into revealing yourself in that way. I just don't think that's right.
Well, they didn't. It was just that there's a lot. If you do have problems, anybody has problems. There are a lot of videos on YouTube that go through different things, and one of the things can be is if you're hiding. Not if you're using a mask like Crow or Seg, but if you're actually doing it literally through an avatar, or sometimes I'm just doing a voiceover because they're like a real person there in some way, shape, or form. I put my face on because it was always the plan. It was always the plan to. I just haven't got the space I want set up yet to actually do it. I was always planning on going on camera. If I wasn't always planning on going on camera, I wouldn't have done it, and I'd have just said to them, other people don't do it. That's why I should. But also, I've got I've got nearly 200 videos. I mean, they're not going to look through 200 videos. And you do an appeal video to show your processes. And that was all justified, But I think the AI thing is a problem because it's, I write the lyrics, I, work with it's no different to me than creating something in Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever.
That's right.
But the problem is why I think these descriptions are so vague is it's not in their terms of service about AI. But that's clearly what the problem. I think that's what the problem was. I don't know. It's guesswork, but
Sure.
I'm just more angry that they actually want to away a week later. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's
my
not...
channel's no different. My channel hadn't changed in that 7 days.
Right.
So why monetize in the first place if it was that much of a problem?
Yeah. And the fact that you don't really know why, and you're just left to guess, and it's like, well, how are you supposed to correct it if they can't? And plus, I mean, sometimes you get a real person. I think when you do the appeals, you get a real person, and this person was probably sitting through 200 appeals a day.
Yeah.
And they're not, they're not interested in who you are or what you're doing, or they're not interested in doing any research because they have a quota to make or whatever, and it's just, I understand that it's not a perfect system, but they have the resources and the money to make that system better. And so it's unfortunate. But then you have people like Danny from My Haunted Hotel coming out and saying all these awful things about you. And I guess, of course, he didn't do it on YouTube. As far as I can tell, I think it was all posts on Facebook, if I remember correctly.
It's Facebook, yeah.
But, here's a person who's, demeaning you and talking down to you and making light of your accomplishments and for what? And yet he's still allowed to have a presence on YouTube when, quite frankly, he deserves his teeth knocked down his throat. How did, being bullied by this person, who's also, within a group that I think has high scrutiny for faking paranormal evidence. How did you deal with that? I know you mentioned the community helped you through it, but how have you been dealing with this, and what would you like to share with others that are facing similar types of challenges?
Well, I will start by saying that I knew that there would be trouble releasing the video. It's not like I was naive. I knew that there was high potential but I felt strongly about releasing it. So, and if a similar situation happened with anybody again, I would release the video and just deal with it. It's not like I was like, oh my goodness, it's what they're doing. Why are they being horrible to me? I've been part of this community for a long time. And honestly, I mean, I did a 2-hour live for Seg to go through everything, but I was, and one of the things I said is, honestly, I didn't give a shit about most of it. I really didn't. I actually found that very first screenshot that somebody sent me the screenshots of what he'd said. And the very first screenshot I looked at, I just laughed because I thought, you've just proved everything I've said about the techniques you use, how horrible he was, the debunking community is so toxic, and he just went at me hell for the leather. The only thing out of any of those screenshots that bothered me, hand on heart, was that he took a screen grab of my private Facebook page. That really bothered me. That hit, because it's like, I'm not talking about a Facebook page for Fantastique Publishing or anything like that. I'm talking about my private one, and posted it on his. So that was the bit that bothered me. And then the other thing that happened was, I looked at my comments the day after, and there was a little comment. I thought, oh, that's not much. Maybe it's because I'm a small channel, they're not bothered. Then the screen grabs hit. But then later on, there was this much bigger comment that was put on the channel that was far more intimidating, I think is the word. But by then, I think Seg had already said, do you want to do? So, yeah, I mean, I think that was on the Wednesday, and then on the Friday, I did the live with Seg, and Seg and I discussed beforehand what we were doing, and I felt we drew a line under it, to be honest, and and frankly, I've had I've had no bother since.
Yeah.
I didn't expect Mythos and Shape to release their videos, and part of me thought, well, is anything going to come out of that? But certainly for me, nothing's come out of it. I might not. I know I keep saying I'm not a debunker, but I am as much as part of the debunking community as anybody. I just do things a bit differently, and I'm not going to keep my mouth shut if something like that happens. Because some of the stuff he said was, I'm not talking about me. Some of the stuff in that video that I reacted to was awful. I'm gonna say something.
Sure. As you should. And then for him to try and scare you into submission, which didn't work.
Here's the thing though, Jimmy, and here's the thing why the community works, is I think what he did, I don't know, but I think what he did was he saw the video and then just decided to blow up about it. I think all he saw was a channel that at the time had something like 350 subscribers. I think that's all he saw. All he had to do was look in my comments, right? He would have seen Seg, he would have seen Crow, he would have seen Joe, he would have seen, he would have seen the community in there. But I don't think he realised, I think he underestimated this community. He probably thought I was a little channel on my own, If you'd have looked into the channel properly.
Yeah, well, you struck a nerve. You must have said something in there that was true. And that's what got him heated. And then, of course, that emotion, he allowed emotions to dictate what he was going to do next, which, obviously he's not too worried about you or whatever. He was at the time. And I think that he's probably backed off a bit now because he's kind of realized, oh, she's friends with these people and she's in good with these people. But at the same time, I mean, that doesn't give him any excuse or any right to come at you in such a way. You know, for pointing out things that concerned you. It's just silliness. It's silliness, and the fact that he's a grown-ass man acting this way to such a wonderful lady who it just, you know, it really shows the how classy that guy really is, you know. You've written several books that are yet to be published.
Yeah.
What is there? Can you give me kind of an insight on to some of the books that what they're about, and maybe what's inspired you to write them?
Well, the biggest one was one I started when I was in my teens. Excuse me, I'm gonna cough.
Sure.
And that one is a fantasy novel. But I have also sort of written short stories on horror, etc. I mean, some of the stuff I've written is designed to actually be illustrated books rather than just, you know, just all textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly comic book as well. I'd like to do some comic book work.
Very cool.
So it's more about having the storyline than I think my light's fading. Just let me sort my lights out.
Sure. We have Giselle in the audience has said that she's very jealous of that top that you have on. She's quite the fan. She says that's a wonderful shirt.
Quite the fan of the top. Well, you know, it's amazing what you can buy off Temu.
It is.
Literally where I got it from.
It is.
And I
Temu
know
is
some
pretty
people
wonderful.
say, oh, Temu, you can't buy from Temu. Yeah, watch me.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I've made some purchases from Temu. I gotta tell you, I bought a. It was a stone, a black crystal, and I look at this crystal and I'm like, oh man, I want to get that. Which I never ever buy crystals, but it was like a good price. And you know, in the picture, I mean, it's like this guy's got his hands around it, and it's you know, big, right?
Yeah.
And then I get it, and it's literally this big, and I'm like, it must have been the world's tiniest person holding on to this thing, because it, you know, just. But yeah, you run into that sometimes with Temu. But I will say I've had some pretty decent purchases with them.
Yeah.
But you were talking about this fantasy thing that you were writing from the time that you were a teenager. How close is it to being finished, or is it one of those projects where you're like, I don't know if this will ever be finished, or is it something that you really are trying to get done and put out there?
Well, technically I did finish it, but then I thought of more. The story kind of kept evolving because I didn't do anything with it. And every time I think about it, it changes. So I think these days it's more of a word bank for doing other projects with, if that makes sense. Sure. Because so many other ideas have come out of it. I don't know if the novel in its original form will ever happen. I think it'll be. I mean, I've already done one piece from it. There's a short story on my channel called "Can't You Hear Them Screaming," which I adapted from one of the chapters from the book. So, that
would be a great album name.
What? Can't You Hear Them Screaming?
Yes, I love that. I love that. So obviously you're facing challenges. To you know, during the process of self-publishing, I mean, other than your own personal challenges, right, finishing something or whatever, or getting it out there, what kinds of challenges do you face when you're in this process of self-publishing?
Time, to be honest, because I do. The reason for wanting to do the publishing is. You know, I'd sort of spent when you're a full-time artist, and you know, it's not, unless you're really lucky, it's not. It's like being a full-time musician or a full-time whatever. It's not a lucrative thing. You're literally living hand to mouth, but it is
Sure.
possible to earn a living as a full-time artist. But you have to compromise, right? I can't spend all day drawing what I want to draw, because I have to draw what sells. So I'd spend, and I do live in obviously where I am, I live in a very heavy tourist area. So I was doing a lot of stuff that normally I wouldn't bother with. And it got to the point that I just wanted to go back to doing what I wanted to do and finding a way to make it work. And I just thought that doing the publishing side, you know, because I am probably more of an illustrator than anything. I thought, well, I could, because you can, you know, there's so many places now online, like Amazon will do it, Kindle will do it, Blurb. There's all sorts of different websites where you can actually self-publish, and just put my artwork to it and do the type of artwork I want to do. So that's kind of where it came from. It's time to put it together and to get it sorted out, because at the same time it's all very good, and I'm sure I can bring some money in earnings in when it happens, but I've still got to be making money now. So it's juggling. And the other thing, if you're a full-time artist, it's one of those things where you don't just do one thing. Your income streams come from quite a few different places, so you're juggling things all the time.
Okay, so how do you balance that time and energy? How do you balance that?
It's difficult. It is difficult. There's no secret. Just the best I can. It's funny because I was talking to somebody today and about I don't know what project I was talking about, but I remember saying I can do it for my winter project. And my winter project this year was the website, was the YouTube channel. But because I'm in the touristy area, my biggest income used to be between April and September, when the tourists arrive, you know, and selling to the tourists. And I suddenly realised I'm not doing that anymore. I'm literally all year now, you know, full on. I'm in the process of having to rethink how I do things. So I don't have an answer. And, you know, I don't know what I was saying I was going to do. That's going to annoy me now. And I remember saying, I'll do that as my winter project. And I thought, no, there's no such thing as a winter project anymore.
Yeah.
That being said, you know, sort of January and February, all of us, you know, the last 2 quarters about mine in January and February, I do really need to. I mean, I have put so much time into the channel over the last 6 months. I really have got other stuff in slide. But now I know where I stand with YouTube, and I won't change what I'm doing on the channel, but I know what I'm doing there now, so I'm going to start to work on how everything else fits in as well.
I would say that if there's no such thing as winter projects anymore, then that means that you're obviously successful, because you just have projects all the time.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. I don't think I've ever met somebody other than tattoo artists who have work like that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so that's wonderful that you've been able to, you know, keep yourself afloat by, obviously, you know, you have to, like you said, you have to appeal to what people want.
Yeah.
Do you ever find yourself drawing for you anymore?
The irony is, I'm about to start, because the sort of thing that I'm producing for both the business and the channel, and I'm working on my merchandise at the moment. You know, obviously I'm branded under Fantastique, and it's about the paranormal, it's about the supernatural, it's about all that sort of stuff. that's naturally what I draw anyway. So it you know, this channel's helped, and the publishing as well, but this channel in particular has pretty much helped bring me back to it. I know I use a lot of AI art, but you know, that was only for the channel. All of the merch will be hand drawn, and it'll all be my work, etc. So it's kind of nice that to have the channel as a base, if you like, for me being able to do the art I want to do again. So touch wood, and the subject matters that will go on to the artwork, you know, the fantasy and etc. Be nice to do again, because you do have to compromise as an artist to make a living.
Sure. I want to ask one of my mods if they're available to. In the description, you will find a link to Fantastique's Facebook, to Sarah's Facebook. But also, if somebody would pin her YouTube channel in the comments, that would be wonderful. I made sure to. I believe your YouTube is also. No, I have your Instagram and your Facebook there. I need to link your YouTube down there as well. But if somebody could do that, one of my mods, that would be wonderful. Can you walk us through your creative process when you're working on a new piece of art or writing a new book?
For artwork, I just sit down and do it. I will admit to that. But my general creative process is, I said about always having notebooks with me, and it tends to just be notes and scribbles and little sort of spider diagrams just to sort of work things out. It can be a range of things. It might be a lyric, it might be a quote, it might be just me having a sort of random idea. I'm working on a project at the minute that I haven't revealed. I've just set up a Patreon, so I'm actually going through it on that. But yeah, it's kind of mood boards for finding different visuals, just putting everything together while I've got the full shape of the project in my head. But I am very much a note taker. It's like I mentioned, going down to the cafe for coffee every day, and I'll always have my notebook with me. And I'm always meeting up with a friend or friends, but usually I can, because I'm self-employed, I can sit there for longer. So I like it when people have gone, I can sit down and just take notes and just get my head wrapped around things. My creative process probably is a bit chaotic, but and I think this is the same for everybody who's a creative. Once that bit of epiphany hits and that everything comes together, then there's no stopping me. It's just sometimes waiting for that everything to fall into place.
Yeah, you can't really force it, right? I think the best work comes naturally. It just sort of happens. And when you see that starting to unfold, for me personally, when something just starts happening the way, just like when I listened to Crow and Joe talk about how Evil Unearthed happened, it just was meant to happen.
Yeah.
You can't force stuff like that. So, yeah, it's difficult to kind of explain that in a way that's digestible, to somebody who doesn't quite understand. So I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but it's a good point to bring up.
When you know, you know.
Yeah.
It's like the project. There's a project that I wanted to do for a while, which I'm calling my secret project, and it was just an idea I had, and it's not even a commercial thing. It's just something I want to do, and it's partly because of running the channel. I haven't really had time to get my ideas wrapped around properly yet. They've been all over the place. But it's funny. I don't know if Philip's in the chat. Stay tuned.
Is.
I was talking to him a week or two ago, and I was looking at one of the videos he'd made, and it was part of because I need to put some animation in what I'm doing. And then I was looking at it, and I don't know, something just twigged when we were going through. It can come from it always helps, I think, when you're talking to somebody else. And I wasn't talking to Phil about the project. I was just, the way we were talking about things, it was like it just snapped into place, and I thought that missing element that I had to pull the whole project together.
Right.
I'd suddenly come up with. So I know what I'm doing now. So I'm just ready to get cracking on it.
Yeah.
And that, like I say, I'm not doing this project for anything other than me. But I just got this thing, this bee in my bonnet about doing it. So
Yeah, and when you're working with other people, when you kind of like what you're saying, you know, it wasn't that you had planned it that way, but something happened, and then the project that you're working on became a little bit bigger than just you, didn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, both Philip and Wisdom have helped me with, you know, doing the music programs and you know, the little bits of animation software, etc. So again, it's nice not to be on your own and thinking, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do. I just don't know how to do it. But when you can bounce ideas back and forth on how to actually use the technology, to be honest. Because the thing with what I'm doing is I want it to be all my artwork, 100% my artwork. But I also want it to move and be animated, but it's still my artwork. That's the trick.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not talking about an AI generation. I'm talking about when it's my artwork for me or for the business, it's my artwork. I don't use AI for anything other than that. There's the irony, for anything other than the channel.
Yeah. It is ironic, isn't it? Because it's what, you know, I was going through your Instagram and looking at the stuff that you've done, and I'm like, wow, this is, you know, because everything that I've seen up until recently has just been AI stuff, which I don't want to say just AI, but it's one of those things that AI takes, there's a skill there. Somebody mentioned that in the comments. There is a skill there, because I've tried working with AI and I could never get it to do what I want it to do. And I guess it's probably in how I'm wording things and stuff like that, but it's like I have yet to come up with anything on AI that I was like, that is incredible. You know, I barely like the logo that I have right now, which I had, you know, AI put together, and I had to really, just to get something so simple like that, I had to really try again. So there's a struggle there. But when you have an image and you're putting it to paper, I feel obviously you have more control, and I'm very interested to see. I really want you to put out a book, and you're saying you want to put out a book that has that is also illustrated, sort of like Brian Froud. You know, Brian Froud. You know who he is?
Yeah. I love Brian Froud.
Yeah, he's an amazing artist. And I used to have his book on fairies, which I'm reading it, and I'm like, wow, this looks an awful lot like, I know that he worked with Labyrinth, but did he also work with the Dark Crystal? He did work with the Dark Crystal too, I believe, right?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, I just showed that to my little boy the other day, which he was a bit scared at first. But yeah, there's something about there's a charm to being able to do that, and I understand writing and also illustrating. Not everybody can do that, and when you are able to do something like that, it makes the work probably 100 times longer than what it would have been in the first place, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing with the AI is, I mentioned the project that I'm putting together. The other thing it helps with as an artist, and anybody who's an artist out there, think about this, is, you know, I'll have an idea of a scene in my head, and I can't. The old way, I would have had to find about 20 different photographs or pictures to sort of put that scene together. Whereas I actually tried it. I sort of described the scene I wanted, put it into AI. It won't be replicated the way I did it, but I've got all the structure, I've got all the form, I've got the perspective that, do you know what I mean? So it does have its uses. I mean, the stuff in the merchandise will be some of it's AI generated just to give me the ideas.
Right.
We're in a different realm of what we use to do it. And I mean, I've always been a bit of a snob, I suppose, in terms of artwork. Oh, you do everything yourself, and I want to do everything myself. But and I do everything myself for the business. But
well, there
there's
is kind
different
of a stigma, I think, when it comes to AI too. You know,
Yeah.
you can't get away from it, because a lot of people will look at it and say, "Oh, that doesn't take any talent to do that," and I don't think that's fair. You know, if I'm writing a song, which I've yet to do this, but I'm not against throwing some ideas into AI, into an AI engine, and listening to what it does and seeing if there's something that I could use out of that. Now, it doesn't mean I'm going to take it and just use that, but I think anything that can help the creative process move along, because we get in our own way as artists, don't we? Yeah, we get in our own way, and it's easy to get hung up. That's part of the reason why it's taken me 4 years to put together a documentary, because, you know, I've gotten in my own way. And when you have these tools and you use them in that way, I think there's nothing wrong with that. And it's unfortunate that it's sort of like when I was growing up in the 90s, you know, I'm a drummer, and there's all this industrial music coming out with programmed drums. My drum instructor to this day will shit talk drum machines. And he asked me, he was like, "What do you think about drum machines?" And I'm like, "Well, there's a tool for every job. You know, it's just a tool. And if it can get you closer to what it is that you're after, I see no reason in using that. Is it cheating for somebody to use a nail gun as opposed to a hammer and nail?"
Yeah.
You know,
It's a good analogy, actually. It's funny on the reverse with the music, because I'm an ex-musician, but I used to write my own stuff when I was a lot younger, and that's actually what frustrates me with AI. Is, you know, I might be perfectly happy with something, but I want to mix it, or I want to, you know, change certain elements of it in a certain way. So I think there's, even if you're using it for one reason or another, you know, if you are a musician or a writer or an artist, whatever it is that you do, you're always going to want to have that extra bit of control and that extra bit of you put in there that AI can't give, but it can be useful to help you get there, you know?
Right. Yeah. Let me ask you, throughout your journey as an artist and a writer, and everything that we've just talked about, what are some of the most valuable lessons that you've learned? Something that you take with you every day that you think, or something that's, you know, that made a significant impact, that helped you or hindered you, for that matter.
I think as an artist, it was a funny journey as an artist, actually, because it was 2012 I started doing it full time and selling my artwork. And when I first started selling my artwork, I thought I had to do commercial stuff, and, you know, the stuff that I would normally produce for me would be too out there for people. But I learned very quickly that the stuff that's in my style, all right, you might not get as many customers, but I have customers for my stuff that's literally my style, that they buy and buy and buy. And I sometimes say to them, "Have you got any space left on your walls?" I mean, I'm not talking about huge amounts of people, but I have about sort of 7 or 8 people who I think, "Have you got any space left?" Because they like the style, and they'll come back and they'll keep coming back. And anybody in business, whatever bloody business it is, it doesn't matter what fucking business it is, you know, the person who buys something off you, great, but you may never see them again. I mean, I deal with tourists. When I was dealing with tourists, it's like, yeah, great, you sell it to a tourist, but they may never come back to where I am. But you get somebody who likes your work and just keeps coming back time and time again. Those repeat customers, you look after them. Unfortunately for me, I mean, I suppose maybe it's just fortunate that it happened for me. But the stuff that's my stuff and the stuff I enjoy doing is successful like that. You know, it's probably 10% of the number of customers I have, but they probably spend a lot more money.
Sure.
So I think, and it's difficult, especially if you're just starting out. It's difficult to put yourself out there anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's knowing what is going to work, but also I can't think of anything worse or so than never being able to do any art I wanted to do. It's bad enough when I have to do stuff I don't want to do, but if you're a creator, you have to do it your way. You have to do it the way it works. But whatever you're doing, whether it's a channel or piece of music. And the other thing I think is important is to know your limitations, but not be afraid to keep going forward. I never trust anybody creatively who thinks they know it all and they keep stepping it forward. I think if you're a creator, you're striving for new ideas or to get better. But finally, I think the other thing is know when to leave something alone, and I'm a bugger for that. You know, sometimes I'll literally have to have a voice in my head saying, Sarah, leave this picture alone, you've done enough to it. You know, because otherwise you end up ruining it. You know, so, yeah.
Boober is asking if it's okay to put your Discord out. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine, Boo.
Okay. Right now, I'm in the final stretch of my questions, and I like to save some because not everybody has a bunch of questions during the questions and answer segment. So I think what we'll do is we'll take our break a little early. We're at 10 minutes till usual time, and that'll give you some time to get yourself some coffee or have a smoke or whatever you want to do. And we'll come back and we will begin to answer. We'll do the questions and call-ins. I want to thank. I love that you're here talking with me because I've really wanted to learn about you, and so thank you for the opportunity to sit down with you and learn. I appreciate it. Yeah. All right. This is Into the Night, and we have Sarah, also known as Fantastique Publishing, with us. We're going to take a little break, and when we come back, we are going to do questions and call-ins. We will see you after the break. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. Right. Questions and call-ins time. A lot of you have been here before, so you know how this works. For those of you who are new, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put an invite link here in the... I'm going to post this at the top of the chat. If I can... I really hate how this heart in my... There's like a heart thing that you can click and make hearts happen in the chat. And it gets in the way of being able to pin things at the top. Okay, so as I was saying, you can do a call-in by clicking on that link, and you'll be put in a queue. And what we're going to do is you'll have 60 seconds to ask your question, and then you can choose to either sit in the stream while she answers, or you can leave the stage right after you ask the question and listen to her answer in the stream. If you do choose to stay on while she answers, I ask that you promptly leave the stage after she's answered, so that way we can get as many questions as possible, so I can keep the stage going with the next caller. If you would like to come into the stream to ask a question, you can click on that link above in the chat. I ask that if you're watching the stream while you wait, that you turn down the volume of the stream once you are on the stage, because that will confuse you. You can put your question in the chat if you don't want to call in. Just put the letter Q, preferably in capital, and then that way I can see the questions, because Sarah cannot see the questions the way I have things set up. It's very different. So, questions and call-ins. It's time to go. I will start, as usual. How do you hope your work, both your art and writing, impacts your audience?
I'd like to think it provokes imagination at the very least in the audience. Whether it's the art, whether it's with my art. When I say my art, the stuff I like to do, I like the idea of somebody putting a piece of art on their wall, which they keep looking at. The problem when you sort of sell into the tourists, you just know that they're just part of the decor.
Oh.
I like the idea of people always liking every so often to be able to just look at the picture and just sort of enjoy it, and over the years, So I like that sort of longevity of people enjoying something rather than it being forgotten and never looked at again.
Yeah.
But also in terms of both the right and the art and art and the writing. And when I'm selling at fairs, or when I was selling at fairs or shows or whatever, you'd often get people who say, I really like doing art, but I can't draw a straight line. How do I do it? And my advice is just do it. Don't do it thinking, oh, am I any good? Don't do it for anybody else. Just do it for yourself and see how it goes, and don't put any pressure on yourself. I mean, I spent nearly 20 years being told at school. I would go to parents' evenings, and the teachers with me there would say to my parents, I don't understand how you two can both be artists and Sarah can't draw a straight line, and it was me that picked up the pencil. I'm not saying it was perfect when I started. I'm sure the writing wasn't, but if you enjoy doing something, then that's the be all and end all. And art especially is so relaxing. I mean, for a long time, if I wanted a day off, I would literally put a film or a TV show. Often, actually, it was Lord of the Rings. I'd put the whole extended trilogy on, which I'd seen a million times.
Sure.
I'd just have it on in the background and just sit and draw, and it's so relaxing. There's a reason that art is used for therapy. It's so relaxing. And if you like doing writing, I would say the same thing. Do it for yourself first before you do it for anybody else. That's my advice.
Michael Burkeen asks, what is your favorite comic book style? Is it manga, anime, simple cartoon, classic?
I do have a favorite comic book artist, and he's called, I think I've mentioned this in chat before. He's called Dave McKean. He works a lot with Neil Gaiman, and he's actually got, I think he's done more than one film. He's done one film called Mirror Mask, if you want to see his visual work without it being comic book form. But he uses a lot of collage stuff, so it is his own artwork, but he also has pictures in there, he has textures in there. It's real collage work, and I love Dave McKean's work. So it's Dave, McKean, if anybody wants to look him up. But or just look up Mirror Mask, all one word. He did that film.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with Mirror Mask, so it's an interesting title. And already it's one of those titles that kind of evokes an image, in your head. Mirror Mask, I like that a lot. Don't be afraid to ask questions, chat. Now is the time. I'm sure that during our 2 hours of sitting here,
chat know anything. We know Sarah. What can we ask her?
All right. Well, I'm doing my best here, trying to come up with things for myself, even. I get okay. What about you like this guy that you just mentioned, the guy that did Mirror Mask? What was his first name again?
Dave.
Dave McKean.
Yeah.
What other are your what other artists are inspirations for you, or even mentors, if you have them?
I don't really have any mentors. I mean, I'm kind of, I love the Art Nouveau period and the art and craft period of the early 20th century. So my style, you can see that in my style when it's my stuff. It's very classic. Even when the subject matter's out there, it's very classic lines. So I don't know if there's any other specific artists. I tend to go more to. I mean, I love. Obviously, I love Van Gogh, but I think it's just loving art generally, and maybe loving individual pictures generally rather than being obsessed with any one artist. I mean, I do like comic book. I do like graphic novels. I don't have a huge range, and I tend to be a bit of an tart when it comes to the visuals in them rather than the storylines.
Yeah, well, I understand that. That's part of the graphic novel experience.
Yeah,
that's what draws you to it. I recently bought the Crow graphic novel, the whole thing, hardbook. I'm very picky about the graphic novels that I want in my library. Do you find yourself the same way?
Yeah, the Crow graphic novel. About 4 or 5 years ago, one of my regular customers, he wanted a collage of. He sent me a couple of his Crow graphic novels to use, and I did a collage of work from them, and the artwork in the Crow books. I mean, I've got them myself now, but the artwork in the Crow graphic novels is absolutely amazing.
It's phenomenal.
Stunning stuff in there.
And it's just black and white.
Yeah.
Which gives it a tone of its own, and it's very simple, but not at the same time. There's a lot of atmosphere to it, and you feel for the characters, and it's interesting too seeing what the characters look like in the graphic novel versus the original movie, because they had them at the time. This is like 1994 when the movie came out, and what the 90s that time and period was like, so they had to make it look more appealing, because like Tintin looked like, have you ever seen the movie The Warriors? Oh man, I've stumped her, ladies and gentlemen. Completely stumped her, so bad that she is locked into position. We have lost Sarah. Oh my goodness, I'm sure she'll get that straightened out. What a wonderful interview it's been. Oh man, Teshi's jumped in. All right, Teshi. Once she gets back, we'll get to your question too. I do have a couple of questions here that I want to answer, but I won't keep you waiting, my friend. Good to see you hanging out. If there's anybody else that would like to call in, please do. I think she just sent me a message. Yeah, her internet is down and she's going to reboot. So, listen to my birds. Daggone birds. Who invented birds, man? Why they gotta be in my chimney, man? I need to put Teshi on the case. Get Teshi in there, crawl down into my chimney, and eat those birds, man. Julie, with the gifted one GhostQuest membership to Blueberry. Blueberry. You know the drill. You just became a member, which means you have access to emojis. You've got access to extra videos, which I will be putting out a new members only video this week. Actually, probably tomorrow. I'm going to go through and see what I can find and put something together for the members. Yeah, well, thank you so much, Julie, for the gifted, and you're an absolute legend. I love seeing you here. I love everybody coming in here, saying hello, spending your Tuesday evening with us. Warriors come out and play. Funny enough, that guy is T-Bird in The Crow, which is what brought up that anyway. I was talking about how Tintin in the graphic novel, Caroline Baxby became a member as well. Thank you for that. But Tintin in the Crow graphic novel looked like he belonged in the Warriors. Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate that. She says, Jimmy, you're a great interviewer. I do my best, man. I watch good interviewers, and I listen to good interviewers. Art Bell was a great interviewer. Very go with the flow. I love Art Bell. And I try to bring some elements of that to this show as well. That's where the questions and call-ins thing comes from. I mean, it's straight up coast to coast. But I also like Sean Evans from Hot Ones. I like the way that he asks questions. And what's not to love about chicken wings, for God's sake? The Crow was great. Hopefully, Sarah makes it back soon. Still keeping an eye out for her. Yeah, The Crow is great. I would like to get the Killing Joke graphic novel as well. But books cost money. Books cost money. I have so many things that my money is spoken for. Like these fish tanks back here. Those are live aquariums, ladies and gentlemen. There are no fake plants in those. Those are actual living plants. And in order to keep the fish tank balanced, I need a lot of plants. And plants for aquariums are unbelievably expensive. I don't know if you're aware of that. I didn't know that when I decided to get me an aquarium and then branch off to 2 more. I question my life decisions. But I do love my fish. They're a lot of fun. I have 2 plecos wisdom. I've got 2 in the big tank. And then there are 2 albino plecos in my little tank. This one right here. That's a 10-gallon tank, which I want to extend to. I've got a 20-gallon long. And there's glowfish in that tank. That was actually the first group of fish I bought were glowfish. And then in the other tank here, this 55, I had 3 angelfish. 2 of them died. One of them was my black angelfish. Poor little goat. 2 of them, the little ones died. The big one's still in there. I've got a couple of goldfish in there that Gavin wanted. And I've got 3... Oh, darn it. What are they called? Oh, the name escapes me. It'll come to me. But they look like goldfish, only they have black tails and they're itty bitty and they're the cutest little goddamn fish in the world. And then this tank here is my cichlid tank. I've got 2 Mabuna in there. I've bought 7 different Mabuna, but there's a black and blue one in there that he's a serial killer. I've seen him, he'll like back him into the corner and be like, psh, 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 give me your lunch money. And I mean, he is a murderer. He is a murderer. Yeah, an Oscar, yeah. Oscars are, man, that's all I need is to put a bigger fish in there. I thought about going and catching a bluegill and throwing it in there. I bet he wouldn't mess with that. He would be like, okay, you're the bigger fish, because that's how fish work, right? I will say that black and blue Mabuna is gorgeous. He is gorgeous, but he's a dick. Murdering dick. I've got all these questions from earlier. I'm still no word from Sarah. hopefully she makes it back soon. Sorry to keep you waiting, Teshi. Bad timing. Bad timing. See if I have any news from her. Looks like she's back on. Oh, and I'll take this opportunity to mention, don't forget the after party after the show. Today we just sit and hang out, we chat, nothing scripted. I do have something that I'm going to share with you that's very special. Very special. It is a video that Luke did in college, and I think it's even just the thought of it makes me emotional. So I want to share that with all y'all. So keep an eye open for the after party, and I will go live promptly after we end our show here. Go ahead and scroll down. I can always come back to those questions after a bit. So we got in here. Let me take a look at who's in the chat. I can always say hello to peoples in the chat. We've got Blueberry329, Candy7, Caroline Saxby, Cheryl King, Michael Burkeen, Paranormal 54, Ross Side Paranormal, hey Laura, Steph Cuervo Queen, happy goddamn birthday, Wayne Dawson, and Wisdom. Thank you guys for hanging out with us again. I thank you for just the whole hanging out with us on a Tuesday night. There are 150,000 other things you could be doing on a Tuesday night. I do have multiple monitors. I do. I have what you're seeing here actually is a display of my main monitor, and then I run OBS on another monitor, and that's where I also keep my questions and my script. And then on the left side, because I'm kind of really enjoying the idea of doing fun paranormal news at the beginning of the episode, just reading a story that I found that was interesting or whatever, and then asking the question of the day, which, by the way, the question of the day was, would you rather have the ability to breathe underwater or cat-like agility? That was the question of the day. Feel free to answer in the chat section. Sarah has made it back. Welcome back.
Sorry about that.
You should be. You
the luxury of living rural, internet suddenly just dropped without warning.
Yeah. Yeah, well, one day that won't be a problem. We have Starlink, and that's supposed to give rural, which I live in a rural area too, and I am blessed to have fiber optic out here. It's amazing that we have something like that where I live, because I literally everywhere I look is cornfields and soybeans and cattle. Right, I was talking about how Tintin looks like he belonged in the movie The Warriors in the graphic novel. But when you look at him in the film, he's got long dreads and he's, the long leather jacket. Totally don't look the same, but you hate him just as much. I'm looking for the questions that were posted up here. I know that Rob asked, what kind of coffee do you like to drink?
Black and strong.
Black and that's how you like it.
Yeah, I mean, I do like good coffee, but I drink so much that it's just the best. Most of the time, it's just the best instant or grains I can find. My favorite coffee is actually Costa Rican. I love Costa Rican coffee.
Yeah.
And there used to be a really good range here of Costa Rican coffee that Kenko did, and they seem to have stopped doing it. It was more expensive, but it was so worth it. But I have this weird system where I just love coffee. It doesn't keep me awake or anything. You know, I drink coffee all day, and as soon as I'm ready for bed, I'll go straight to sleep.
Yeah.
But you know, it doesn't get me wired or anything.
Right. But if you
and
don't
don't
have
really
it, you
need
would
coffee.
notice when you don't have a cup of coffee. I'm sure you know, you notice that you don't have it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, when we went on a break, before I went and made it, I actually said in the chat to Wisdom and Stay Tuned that I just had 2 hours without a coffee, and Wisdom's like, "Go and get a coffee."
What are friends for? They're looking
Yeah.
out. They're looking out for you.
Ah.
Booberry asks, which do you like better, white or dark chocolate, and why? She didn't give
Booberry
milk
knows.
chocolate.
No, it's because Booberry knows the answer to this. You little tinker, Booberry. She knows that I hate with a passion white chocolate. I don't think it should be called chocolate. I hate it. I love dark chocolate, but I can't stand white chocolate. It's funny, while I was waiting for the internet to connect, I was on my phone in Crow's group, and he's put a picture of cookies with white chocolate on, and I've just gone mad, saying no white chocolate and cookies.
Yeah, white chocolate isn't my favorite. I can handle it. It's almost like a yogurty thing in a way. It's hard to place it.
Chocolate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is. I mean, it's made from cacao, right, or cacao, or whatever. Yeah. But so it is technically chocolate. It just doesn't.
Yeah, it's chocolate, but no. Right. I don't do white chocolate. A Booberry knows that. Not Booberry.
Steph Cuervo, Queen, the birthday girl, is asking if you could meet 5 people, living or dead, to have a conversation with for 1 hour, who would they be? I adore that question. 5 people, living or dead. Yeah, I know, right?
Do you know, this is the sort of question that after I've answered it, I'll think of way more people later on.
Sure.
I'm stumped. So I honestly don't know. I really
Let's with any actors.
I would like to sit and have a conversation with Neil Gaiman. I really like Neil Gaiman as a writer.
Okay.
She said living or dead, right?
That's correct.
It's funny because Terry Pratchett came up in a conversation earlier today. And he was a very clever man. I have met him, but not to sort of talk to properly.
Yeah.
So I'm talking. 2 of those are writers. So because you're specifically talking about actually having a conversation with people, so somebody that you'd actually quite happily talk to, because I'm actually quite socially awkward, so it would have to be somebody I'd really want to talk to for an hour.
Yeah. Right. It's like hard. It's hard enough for me to think of one person that I would, that's why when I do these interviews, it's like, who interests me? Who interests me the most?
It's funny you should say that, Jimmy, because I am planning on. I keep doing podcasts. What I'm planning on doing is not interviews. I'm not doing interviews, but I want to have discussions with people on a specific topic. So, for example, I've already got yeses from Crow and Jeff and Beardo, but it's not. But I'm literally, the best person in the world that would bring in the biggest audience in the world could say, oh, well, I'll do a discussion with you, Sarah, and I'd be like, no, thank you, because I need to be comfortable with the person that I'm talking to,
right?
For something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
So, yeah, and so that's important to me. So somebody who you could actually. That's how I don't sort of. I connect with people I've got a common interest with that you've already got. I can't sit there and talk about the weather or shopping or whatever. It just bores the living daylights out of me. I'm terrible. I just end up shutting up,
Yeah. When you have nothing to add.
Yeah. I don't. I'm not interested. If I'm not interested, I'm awful.
Well, we do have somebody that always has something to add. I'm going to bring Teshi on to ask their
Oh, I
question.
love watching.
Hey,
Tashi's awesome.
Teshi. Welcome, welcome.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Gotta say, a little disappointed that you don't have a hat on. You know, your little steampunk hat.
Oh, I've got one in here somewhere. I don't know where it is though.
And
I promise I'll go on camera for the next live stream and I'll put the hat on.
okay.
Okay?
Yeah, and I'm gonna climb in that chimney for you, Jimmy. Don't
Oh,
worry
thank
about
you.
that. I'll nibble on them for you.
Thank you. They're just,
And my
I
question
can't.
is, where do you see us debunkers going in the near future?
In the near future.
Yeah. Where would you like to see us go?
That's a difficult one. I like to see a wider range of channels being covered. I realise what the problem with that is because obviously the bigger the channel, the more the audience is going to be. So that is a problem. But I'd like to see, and I know that there are some debunkers who are trying to find different channels now. I know Seg does it. I know Crow does it. I know Josh Parrish does it. Trying to find just, yeah, it's easy to hit the twin paranormals and etc. But I just think it just in when it's people say, oh, you shouldn't hit a smaller channel, but there has been evidence that you so long as you're not nasty about it, because I don't believe in debunkers being nasty about it, but if you're sort of good about it, then maybe small channels will learn before all the bad habits sort of come in. Because I don't think debunkers are about just educating the subscribers and the audience. I think it's about educating as many channels. Let's get more real investigation channels out there and get them while there's more. I'd just like to see the debunkers just keep going. And I know that they will, but it would just be nice to see a wider range of things covered, of channels covered. That's my personal opinion. And good luck with yours, Tash.
Very good. Right. Well, yeah, it's where is it going to go? That's the question. I think that there's a movement happening. And I think that people are kind of starting to, listen to what we're saying. That's the kind of vibe that I'm starting to get, because you can't have one without the other. It's kind of the yin to the yang, but now whichever one we are in that group, is starting to, I think, gain interest. I think people are starting to listen. So I'm glad you asked that question, Teshi. I'm glad you asked. Right. Well, thanks for coming on, and always welcome. Always welcome. Love seeing you. Thanks again. Thank you for your support, and thanks for helping me out so much, Teshi. I appreciate you. We've got a question from Wisdom. What do you think about, I think it's Chonan Vasquez, Invader Zim?
What?
Maybe art style? You probably do know who Invader Zim is. Do you know that? It's a cartoon.
Don't think I do, actually. No.
Fair enough.
Thanks, Wiz.
Let's see here. Looking through, getting some more. I'm way behind on the chat because of our little technical difficulty. So if I'm going to start here with the last question asked, which was from Steph Cuervo Queen. If you could take a movie scene out of one movie and live it out in real life, no danger, and yes, it could be sci-fi, and actually feel the emotions or the adrenaline or the suspense, what would it be?
Does it have to be a movie? Hang on.
Whatever came to mind, I think works.
I was because I love Boba Fett, so it might be sort of probably be being on Tatooine for Star Wars. But if you're talking about emotion,
You
the
like
one
this
that
guy?
immediately came to mind was that's my boo. I love Boba Fett.
Yeah, I am a huge Fett fan. I've got quite a bit of Boba Fett stuff. So, yet something else we share in common. How about that?
But in terms of emotion, what came to mind was the scene at the end of Lord of the Rings where Aragorn gets crowned and just sort of, you know, with the hobbits, sort of, you bow to no. I don't know, it's just something about that scene. But no, I'm a Boba fan, so yeah, just put Boba Fett in the scene with me, and I'd be happy.
Yeah. Would you like to know what it's like to be eaten by a sarlacc, and then fight your way out?
No, but you know, I'd do it for Boba, so you know, I'd make that sacrifice.
What are your thoughts on? I'm glad you brought that up. What are your thoughts on, like where they're going with that character? Because to me, part of the appeal of Boba Fett was the mystique. You didn't know what was under that mask.
Yeah.
You know, there were all these stories, and I've seen old drawings of Boba Fett where he had long white hair. He didn't look anything like what became of that character. You know, the Book of Boba Fett, its content, it's not awful, it's not wonderful, in my opinion. But it's. What are your thoughts? How do you feel about what they're doing with him?
Here's my problem with the Book of Boba Fett, and I do like the Book of Boba Fett. And if anybody didn't make it to the end, they don't deserve to see that scene with the Rancor.
Right.
Because that's amazing. That's one of the best things they've done. But here's my problem with it: is they introduced him so well. Sorry, chat, if you're not Star Wars, I'm going to geek out. They introduced him so well in the second season of Mandalorian. I saw Star Wars in the theatre when I was 10.
Yeah.
I was a massive Star Wars nerd as a kid. Gave up on it for years until somebody persuaded me to watch The Mandalorian. But I always loved that Tatooine and the creatures and everything. So, and I love Tamora Morrison as well.
Yeah.
So I love that he played him. So those 2 episodes in Mandalorian, he was amazing. And the Boba Fett show could have been. This is Disney's fault.
Yeah.
You know, it could have. And I love Robert Rodriguez. This should have been. It could have been 10 times better. It could have been longer, less of the Mandalorian in it. I was also cross because I wasn't so keen on Mandalorian 3, but apparently the very last episode they should have had Boba coming in Slave 1, and Disney wouldn't allow it, and they should have had Ahsoka there as well. And it's like, just stop getting involved. Just let Favreau and Filoni and Rodriguez, whoever's doing it, just let them get on with it. They know what they're doing, and when it doesn't work, it's because Disney's got involved. And I'm sure this has happened with other shows. And Kathleen Kennedy's bloody said no. And I was surprised when I found out what they were planning for that last episode. I thought I would have killed to see Boba come in and help out with that sequence. I love the character.
I think there's a reason why he wasn't involved in that battle, and I'd like to voice it, because I don't know what your thoughts are, but Boba Fett is not a Mandalorian. He's no more a Mandalorian than the son of a police officer puts on his father's uniform and is now a police officer.
Actually, I hadn't thought of it like that, but you are right.
Yeah, he's not a Mandalorian. But there are plenty of people who argue against that. They will swear up and down that he is. But whenever it's brought up, it's very ambiguous in his answers. You know, there's one where Bo-Katan says, or when you first meet Bo-Katan, one of the Mandalorians that are with her say, "You're not a Mandalorian," and he says, "I never said I was." You know, and I like that they're doing that. But at the same time, I think he probably wasn't involved in that battle because he's not from Mandalore. You know, he's not a, so if you ever need to geek out, I'm on Star Wars.
I never get to geek out about Star Wars with anybody.
Boba Fett is phenomenal. Looking for more questions here. I'm not seeing anybody. Please don't be afraid to ask questions. I've got more myself on back up here. Let's see. What legacy do you hope to leave behind through your art?
Oh. It's probably quite simple, actually. I'd just like it to still be there. I'm not bothered about being famous or in an art gallery or anything, but I'd like, you mentioned Brian Froud, for example, have some sort of legacy where you're either something you produce yourself or you're involved with something that, Labyrinth freaks me out. And I have done a custom piece on Labyrinth for somebody, and I know when they asked me, I was honest with them. I said, "Oh God, that means I've got to watch the film." And I got through the same 10 minutes, and wouldn't watch anymore. So I actually reverted to looking at stills and Brian Froud's art. I don't have a massive ego, so it would just be nice to have, even if it was just a small piece of my art, somewhere that lives on.
Yeah.
I'll actually tell you where my favorite art piece went, destination went to, actually, and I'm still thrilled about this. Is I keep talking about my winter projects, and one year, about 6 or 7 years ago, I'd had an idea. I have a favorite. One of my favorite quotes is this. It's "I will write peace on your wings, and you will fly all over the world." And it was said by a little girl who was a baby when in Hiroshima when the bomb was dropped, and she developed leukemia, and by the time she was about 11 years old, she was really poorly. The quote comes from her, and there was an old Japanese legend that if she folded, I think it was 1,000 paper cranes, she'd be well, and she died before she did. It's a really sad story, but I always loved that quote. "I will write peace on your wings, and you'll fly all over the world." And I put the original piece that I did for that online, and it sold. And I thought, oh great, original piece of artwork sold. And when I looked at the destination, it had gone to Japan.
Oh wow!
So it had gone somewhere, yeah, and I couldn't believe it had gone to Japan. So I think it's the only time I've ever sold anything online to Japan, because eBay doesn't tend to hit those markets, because I think they have a separate system. But yeah,
Right.
It went to Japan. So that's an extreme example, but it's always nice when somebody buys something and it already they've bought it because it's already got a personal connection with them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It
I'm
belongs.
not bothered about being world famous if there's a handful of people who pass down through generations because it's personal to them. That's enough for me.
Yeah. Wisdom asks, can you tell us about your first paranormal experience? At least the first one that you remember.
The first one. I think the first one I remember was when I was a teenager. It's a bit of a weird one. But I was, I don't know, I was about 15, 16, a bit older. And I was lying in bed and I was awake because I was watching TV, and it literally felt like something. It was very quick, but it literally felt like something reached into my stomach and pulled on the stomach. It's the first time I remember. It was a really weird feeling,
Yeah.
Yeah. It was literally like something had literally put the hands inside and pulled up, and it was over very quickly. That's probably the first one. But the first big one I remember is the one that I called a premonition. But that's a longer story, and
Yeah.
I need to work out how to tell that one online.
Right.
But I don't remember a lot as a kid. Other than those sorts of, I mean, you could put that sort of thing down to sleep paralysis, I suppose, but you know, sort of stuff that would happen when I was asleep or just on the edge of sleep. But you know, the bigger stuff and the auditory stuff, it wasn't until I was an adult that I remember anything happening.
Steph Cuervo Queen asks, are you going to do any artwork for your Chariots of the Gods series?
I hadn't thought about it actually. I am going to do some for the debunkers because I've got to rework that with the whole monetization thing. I think I probably will for Chariots of the Gods actually, because that would be the sort of stuff that will be in line with some of the stuff I do anyway. That's one of the ways I'm going to get around it on the channel. I mean, I don't have time to illustrate absolutely everything, but when I, you know, putting some of my artwork in there, and there's already stuff on the channel where I've actually filmed myself making things. So I think maybe for sort of future vlogs or stories, it may be me doing the artwork and the voiceover on top, try and keep YouTube happy. So, but yeah, actually, Steph, that's a good idea. To actually include Chariots with that.
Hair Force is asking, where can we view more of your original artwork?
Yeah, I really need to set up a proper something like that, don't I? I will be putting more on, because Hair Force is on my Patreon. I will be including more and more on the Patreon, because the Patreon will be linked to the YouTube channel, but I'll put other stuff on there as well. So I can put slideshows and stuff up on the Patreon, Hair Force, because I'm going to put some of my time-lapse drawings as well on there. I haven't already. I might have done already, I can't remember.
Rob Linklater was asking, who's your favorite, Wisdom or Stay Tuned CC?
I love them both equally. That was naughty, Rob.
Boo Bear is asking, can you tell us anything more or new about your new candle business?
Oh, yeah, we're still sort of working out the logistics of that, but we have got a lot of the stock now to start making them. I've got to buy some more molds, like the molds I was talking about with like the little voodoo doll and stuff like that.
Right.
Our aim is to have that up and running for sometime in September so people can start buying for Christmas. But my merch will be up in the next week or two.
Okay, very good, very good. Wayne Dawson is asking, is it possible to come online via mobile phone and ask a question? So you can use your phone. If you click on that link, you can use your phone, and if you don't want to be on camera, you can just disable the camera, and then you can just use your voice. That's the way. If you want to use your mobile phone, if that's the only way to do it, that is, or if that's the only way that you can ask your question, that's it. But there's no number to call in. So I advise if you want to come on and ask a question, which you're more than welcome to, just click on that link and then disable your camera. I'll make sure that your camera is disabled before I put you on. No one will see you until I allow it. Rob Linklater is also asking, what was your reason for visiting Orkney, and are you planning on coming back anytime soon? I hope I said that right.
Yeah, I have a special connection with Orkney. So if anybody in the chat who's unfamiliar with Orkney, it's a set of islands at the top of Scotland. My grandfather, Orkney is a series of islands that are now connected by what are called the Churchill barriers. So you can drive from island to island. They're very small islands. It's a beauty. It's one of my favourite places on the planet.
Yeah.
And my grandfather during the war, because they had problems with the German boats coming into the area that's called Scapa Flow, and there were massive casualties, etc. So one of the reasons the Churchill barriers the main reason was to actually block off some of the stretches of water. And my grandfather was part of the team that built them in the Second World War. And while he was there, and my grandmother was there, and eventually Dad was born in 43, so he would have been there as well. Is they actually lived with a couple who ran a farm, and that couple became kind of an unofficial set of grandparents to my father, then a set of grandparents to me, and I went up every year till I was 14. That was what we did during the summer, and I would love to go back. I would absolutely love to go back to Orkney. So definitely, really, and what I want to do, Rob will understand this. I'm sorry, it's going to be gobbledygook to everybody else, but they have a stone circle in Orkney called the Ring of Brodgar. When somebody took me to Stonehenge, I really pissed them off because my response was, "Is that it?" Because my experience of a stone circle was the Ring of Brodgar. Massive stones on top of a hillside. It's overlooking another island called Hoy, which is called the Dark Island because it always looks very, very dark in the distance. And just this windswept landscape. It's one of my absolute favourite places. So, to go and see the Ring of Brodgar again, the Italian chapter. Oh, there's just so much there I just want to see again. So yeah, I do want to go back, Rob.
Very good. We do have our caller. Caller, if you are going to go ahead with your camera, you give me a thumbs up. If not, you go ahead and kill that camera. But if you're ready to come on, you can give me a thumbs up. You're good? Alrighty, we're going to bring on Wayne Dawson with a question. How are we doing, Wayne?
Hi there, Jimmy. I'm fine. Yourself? How's Sarah?
I'm alright. How are you, Trouble?
I'm good. I'd like to know, who do you think invented milk and what do you think we're doing at the time?
That is just the sort of question I'd expect from you.
I'm only joking. I'd just like to actually know, what's your guilty pleasures?
Guilty as in... I'm quite open. Coffee, cigarettes, chocolate.
Yeah, but something that you wouldn't own up to wanting?
Something I would own up to. What would I own up to?
Yeah.
I'm a bit too honest. Right. I'm determined to come up with an answer to keep Randy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it a guilty pleasure so much, but I am a big rocker. I'm a massive rock fan. But there are certain musicals that I absolutely adore. So there will be stuff on my playlists that people wouldn't expect, because I think that's the musician in me as well, though, because I like a little bit of country as well, certain country artists. So my guilty pleasures, probably people who know me as the rocker, would probably be surprised at some of the stuff I listen to in between. There you go.
I can relate to that too. I love Slim Whitman, who's he's a falsetto singer, country singer from way back when country was still country. He sang that I remember you. I don't know if you know that song, but I love that guy. So good. That's I love the guilty pleasures thing.
I love that guy. So good.
Wayne, I appreciate you have quite the impressive collection of CDs behind you there. I love that you have physical media.
99.9% of them all rock.
Nice, very good.
So I just let you down.
Thanks for actually utilizing the call-in. I want to see more people doing this. So thanks for getting over that hump, and I look forward to seeing you coming back on and ask more questions in the future.
Hope so too.
Yeah. All right, my friend.
All right, I'll see you later.
Thanks for dropping in.
Bye.
Have a good one. What a wonderful guy.
Yeah, he's lovely.
I saw somebody had asked a question here. What's your favorite thing to eat while you're drinking coffee?
Biscuits.
Biscuits, which
sorry.
we call cookies. Yeah. What kind? What? Isn't there like? I've heard of there's like 5 specific biscuits that you have to have when you're across the pond. Do you know what those would be? I mean, I've seen different pictures. There's some that are they're like round with a little fruit center.
Oh yeah, jammy Dodgers. They're lovely. I love jammy
Yeah.
Dodgers. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Do they have different flavors, or is it just one particular flavor?
The jammy Dodgers is literally just I suppose it's usually like strawberry flavors. Some of them just have the jam in. Some of them have sort of a white sugar, like an icing type thing with it as well. But yeah, I love jammy Dodgers.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually talking about cookies with, I think it was Philip earlier. Oatmeal raisin cookies. I don't think they get enough love. Yeah, everyone in America, it's like chocolate chip cookies. Everyone loves chocolate chip cookies, but
Yeah.
man, there's something about, well, frosted oatmeal cookies for one thing, but oatmeal raisin cookies are just wonderful, and I could see those going pretty well with coffee. How about this? The evolution of technology. We've been talking about AI and those kinds of things. How has that made you better at, or maybe could use work on in film analysis? Do you find that to be a challenge with AI the way it's going? Do you find it affecting
I'm
your
sorry,
judgment?
chat. I'm gonna have to do this, but this is relevant. I'm gonna go back to Star Wars. I love the fact that franchises like The Mandalorian have gone back to a lot of moved away more from AI and practical effects.
Yeah.
I love the fact that there's a little bit of and it's not just Star Wars. It's just that's where I've really seen it. With The Mandalorian, where they're going back to those practical effects to building the puppetry, to building the mechanics, and you can tell the difference. I don't care how good AI is, you can tell the difference when it's textured. And the other thing I watch a lot of in YouTube when there's something specific on is I watch reaction channels, to Star Wars or Stranger Things or whatever.
Right.
They're looking practical effects of things, and it's like again, sorry, chat, but Jimmy will know what I'm talking about. Black Chrysanthemum, when he appeared, and somebody said you couldn't have achieved that fur with AI. It had to be a real suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to see. There's nothing wrong. I have no problems with CGI used in the right way, but one of the reasons I was tiring of Marvel is it's like all bloody CGI now, so can you throw practical effects in occasionally? I'm really loving them and that's probably the artist in me as well, but I'm loving it. I'm loving the practical effects that are being used in now.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's one of the things that appealed to me about The Mandalorian. Because I will say, I was like you. I had really just wasn't impressed with what was coming out when it came to Star Wars stuff when Disney got a hold of it. I was looking forward to some things, and then they really, for lack of a better term, have shit the bed more times than not. But The Mandalorian being it's I love old westerns, and I love to me old westerns are movies like Tombstone or Wyatt Earp, or what's the one with Johnny Depp? I love those, or Young Guns and things like that.
Yeah.
And this movie, or the Mandalorian, definitely has that vibe. Not just because it's on Tatooine, but it's just the way it's shot and filmed, and the way the character himself is. His voice is very reminiscent of the Lone Ranger, and it's just. And he has that Lone Ranger kind of vibe, Really, I really enjoy what they did with The Mandalorian. The Obi-Wan show, I wanted to like it so much, but the only thing that I really enjoyed about it was the scene. Have you watched Obi-Wan?
I'm going to make a confession here. I've watched the bit where Anakin didn't watch the rest.
Yeah. Well, that's the best part. That's the best part.
Yeah.
Where the Obi-Wan and Vader fight in that is so good. And the scene, you know, you can see Anakin under this broken helmet. And you know, he says, "I'm sorry," and Obi-Wan says, "I'm sorry, Anakin. I'm sorry." And he's tears because he's, you know, he's kind of been away and he hasn't seen Vader since the last time on Mustafar. And he apologizes, and Vader replies with, "Anakin is dead. I am what remains." And it's just like, holy, it got really dark there. And then the whole thing where he says, "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did." It's so good. It's so good. But, in my opinion, it's completely negated because when we see the final battle between Obi-Wan and Vader in A New Hope, when Vader kills Anakin, or when Vader kills Obi-Wan, when they first meet each other, Vader says, "The last time I saw you, I was but the learner. Now I'm the master." And they completely shit all over that by making this Obi-Wan show and having Obi-Wan and Vader fight, which again, it's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, Disney? Do you even know the movies? Are you know, it really irritates me that they do stuff like that. I liked the Ahsoka show. I thought it was good.
This is why, though, they should leave it to Favreau and Filoni. Because I like the Ahsoka show, but that scene where Anakin comes back to train Ahsoka that last time. No, that's Disney free. That is Filoni knowing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this isn't just the start. You know, this isn't just Star Wars. There's so many franchises out there that are being written and directed by people who really adore the source material. Leave it to them. Please leave it to them. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
You know, when some studio executive comes along and thinks it should be done differently, or I mean, I wasn't particularly keen on The Witcher, but I know The Witcher people writing The Witcher were very much, oh well, you know, the fans don't know what they're talking about. It was a stupid thing to say. It's like saying the people that you expect to buy your product don't know what they're talking about. Shouldn't you be listening to the people who expect to buy your product?
Yeah.
But yeah, please respect the source material every time, and it will be a head start for being successful. And Star Wars fans, you know, it's like some just moan for the sake of it. But I just want to enjoy my Star Wars. Leave it alone. Let the people who know what they're doing do it, and stop thinking you know better. Sorry, I'm ranting, but it
No, you're
doesn't
fine. You're fine.
I'm still cross about Boba Fett.
I couldn't agree
that
more.
could have been 10 times better.
You're right.
You know?
You're absolutely right. It could have been. Again, though, I talking to somebody, I've been a fan of Boba Fett since the 80s. You know, I mean, I was huge into Star Wars. I know we're going on about Star Wars here. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, so if y'all want the topic,
Star Wars talk.
Yeah, there you go. Leverage is what that's called just now. But you know, it's one of those things where, like, again, the mystique of that character was so important to me, and what they've done with the Mandalorian in terms of that mystique was really, really good. But of course, they can't help but show the face. You know, they got to show the face. We got to see Pablo underneath of there, and which he's a terrific actor, man. Loved him in The Last of Us. Did you watch The Last of Us?
No.
Do you like horror?
I'm not a zombie fan.
Yeah.
I'm not a zombie fan. I've never got into the whole zombie. And I've tried because it was Pedro, so I thought, well, I'll give it a go because I like me Pedro.
Right.
But no.
Did I call him Pablo? Pedro Pascal. He's wonderful. To be fair, The Last of Us is, the zombie element is there, but I think, to me, the zombies aren't even 25% of what makes that show good. It's the connection between Ellie and Joel, and it is best experienced in the game itself, which I'm just gonna go on a limb. You don't seem like a gamer to me.
Not in recent years. I used to be, but
Yeah.
I knackered my left hand, so that's actually why I stopped, because I used to use a PlayStation. I couldn't use it anymore. So, and I daren't get back into it because I know if I got back into it, nothing else would get done. So I purposely.
Well, if you ever find yourself in a situation where you don't have anything to do, and you have yourself a PlayStation, I highly recommend that story, because
All right. Okay.
yeah, it's and yeah, if you can, give it another shot with the show, if you don't think that's ever going to happen. Still looking for some questions. I'm not seeing any. I'm going to ask one more myself, and then we'll probably go ahead and end the show. How do you take care of your mental and emotional well-being while dealing with the pressures and challenges of your career?
I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I think I'll probably deal with it the same way. I mean, I suffer from anxiety. I suffer from social awkwardness. I don't suffer, actually. Suffer's the wrong word. But I've always been like that. So, and I'm 57, so I've had years of practice at dealing with all of that. And I've always been tough. So I kind of have a process of, if I get knocked down, I might cry about it, or not very often, but I might cry about it. I might get angry, but then I kind of need to. The shock, then I get angry, and then I get determined, and then I just get on with things. I very quickly pick myself up. Normally, I have been the YouTube channel's helped this year because I have been really ill for the last 6 months, especially with the anxiety. I'm a lot better now, but so the YouTube channel's been a good focus. But do you know something? When you're into, doesn't matter what you're into. If you're into,
We're cutting out.
Binging. Sometimes all you need is a distraction. That's what I actually used to use games for. When I did used to play on the PlayStation, I could sit for hours, and everything else would just disappear because you're concentrating on the game. So you just have to get on with things in life. You have the little luxury of a breakdown, and then pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going. Well, I did it the weekend when I found out I'd been demonetized. Got upset about it. But Crow was live when I found out. Texted him, and he mentioned it online, brought me on live, so that distracted me. Still upset and a bit angry on Saturday, but by Sunday when I put the appeal in, I was furious, and that was the state I needed to get to. And now I'm just like, well, just get on with it. It's happened. I've got to deal with it. Change my channel. I set up the Patreon. I'm quite good at plan Bs and plan Cs. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I do see the questions. We also have a caller. Hair Force One has decided to call in and ask a question. Welcome to the show, Hair Force. How are you?
How you doing? How's everybody? Hope everybody in the chat's good tonight, man. Much love to all you guys.
Thank you. Thanks for coming
Hey,
on.
sweetheart.
Oh, you bet. I don't really have a question. I think you've asked probably most of anything I would ask. I just want to say it's good to see your face. You're a lovely person. Love your vlogs. Keep up the good fight with YouTube on that channel. I see you over there at Patreon, and just keep it up, man. Just much love. I look forward to your live cast. I look forward to your broadcast. I mean, all you guys, everybody in the chat is just awesome. Sarah, You're kind of like the godmother of all of us, I think. I'm not sure how better to say that.
I appreciate it, first of all, and I appreciate all the support as well. It's so good to have you part of the community. And I like seeing your face as well.
Well, I'm a train wreck, but whatever.
No, quite the handsome man. A fine specimen of a man.
I could get.
Oh,
Anyway, that's kind of it. Just wanted to say much love to everybody in the chat. Again, man, just a wonderful group of people. Sarah, you're awesome. James, you're awesome. All the chat's awesome. I love bouncing around, man. I like the little bits of drama that pop up. But all in all, the most civil group of people I've ever seen in my life. I just don't even really know how I stumbled into this group. But here I am. Like me or not.
Glad
if you don't like me, kick me out. Other people know how to do it.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. I appreciate your support as well. I love seeing you around. Love seeing you at game night and the hangout chats, man. You're always welcome. You're always welcome.
Oh, you know it, man.
You're always welcome. All right, brother.
Anyway,
I appreciate
love
you.
Yep.
Have a good one.
All right. Bye-bye.
See ya. All right. Yeah, so someone has asked me, I believe, yes, Sir Spookfest asked me, have I seen Hellier? Yes. Hellier is one of the inspirations for my documentary. The way that is shot, the cinematography and everything about it really inspired me. And it's one of the reasons why there's no night vision shots in my film, is because I kind of took cues from Hellier, because Hellier doesn't feel like a typical paranormal documentary. They are, a bunch of jackasses out there chasing their tail, which is fun to watch. And I do enjoy those people. But, yeah, I love Hellier. It was really a wonderful documentary. And that's actually where because back when I'm doing the Estes method in the documentary, no one was doing that at the time. That it became popular because of that documentary. Wisdom asks, has anyone hit that like button yet? Like the stream and grow your peen. That's what I always say. We'll make sure that we got everybody's questions answered. Looks like it. Right. Well, Sarah, it's been lovely. It's been lovely. This has been one of my favorite interviews so far. Where can people find you?
Well, my YouTube channel or my Patreon. I haven't got on Discord. Best place to actually, if you have to go into Discord. There's a lot of us in there, so that's growing quite nicely. So, yeah, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, and I do have links in the chat, in the description to her Facebook, as well as her Instagram. You can find her there, and then of course, you can find her on YouTube, and soon to have a Patreon as well in the near future, which we all look forward.
No, the Patreon's ready.
Oh, the Patreon's ready.
Patreon. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Very good.
I don't wait time to get me act together.
You certainly don't. Get things done right now. All right, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Into the Night with Sarah from Fantastique Publishing. We appreciate you. Appreciate all the callers. And we'll see you next week with whoever the hell else I decide to bring on. Again, Sarah, thank you so much. It's been lovely having you on. And
No problem.
I can't wait to see what's next for you, dear. I really can't.
Me either. Thank you, Jimmy.
Ladies and gentlemen, have a good night.